make some adjustments. Hi, everybody. Welcome in. It's Jacqueline's birthday.
Happy birthday.
So welcome in. We're just adjusting the air and the music. It's a little hot and loud in here. It sounds more exciting than it is.
It's like a club in here.
It was like a club, and we don't want it to be a club. So we're really happy you're here. So happy birthday to Jacqueline. Anybody else birthdaying today? Thank you for spending part of your day with us. That's so super special. I know. Paulette's like, I don't know when I attended class live last. Well, we're happy you're here. By the way, the brand new programs are live. And I think there's 50 books left. So if you join the new Living Magic program, which is the new Soul Shift, the name is changing to Living Magic. If you join it for 2023, if you're staying, then you can go to the link that Karen and Alexis will put up on the feed for you, and you can get Deepak Chopra's new book for free.
And we're almost out.
Yeah, we're almost out. So this is last call if you want it. If you missed my 19 different lives this week, I won't be hurt. You guys are busy and you have things going on. But we just started. We're really happy to see you. So yes, Living Magic is the new program. We will spend some time talking about it, a little bit now and then a little bit at the end of class. What I recommend is if you want to stay in Sage Goddess programs in 2023, just don't do anything. You're already in Soul Shift, or you wouldn't be here right now. So just, if you leave your membership as it is, it's going to roll over into the new program. And then the only thing you have to decide, because we're not raising prices of programs, so there's nothing to do. There's nothing more to pay. You won't be charged for the new program until January 1st. The only thing to decide is if you want to do it monthly or annual. A lot of you are changing from monthly to annual because you're going to save $200. So it's only $1,000 for the whole year to stay in Living Magic, which is pretty great. And then you have to decide if you want tools. And you don't have to have tools. Tools are optional. They're fun, but they're optional. So if you want tools, you do have to subscribe. Those don't roll over, but your membership does. So if you didn't cancel, you should just get the book. Tina Matthews, that's exactly right. If you're in Soul Shift right now and you didn't cancel, you should go and get the book. And then you'll have the book, and you'll be able to enjoy the live with me and Deepak. It's if you know who Deepak Chopra is, it's a really big deal that he's going to be live with little old me, yours truly. You know, I've been studying his books and his teachings for, God, I don't even know. I mean, almost 30 years. So when the opportunity came to sit live with him, it was like, this is amazing to bring this to you, and it's free. It's a gift to those of you who will be in Living Magic in January. So it was a kind of a dream come true for me, a little bit of a bucket list moment. Even Alexis, before we started tonight, was like, you're going to be live in January with Deepak Chopra. It's like, sometimes we just forget how like really cool these things are. So anyway, we're happy that you're here. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to see you. I know. Well, you get to ask him questions live, which is really, really cool. So I'm honored and I'm grateful, and I'm glad that you're excited too. And so if you want the book, the link is up in your feed somewhere. They're putting the link up for you, so you can go and get your free book. And like I said, we don't have that many left, and we're not getting any more free books. It's not like, oh, next week we'll say, oh, guess what, we got another 100 books or whatever. It's not going to work that way. They don't have any more books to give us. So this really is like it, last call if you want the book. So Karen and Alexis just posted the link in the feed. It says get your free copy here with the colon, and then it's got the bit.ly link. So if you want the free book, go get it.
That was me.
That was Alexis. She's going to take credit for it.
I did it.
I would actually just go and grab it right now really quick, because the reality is there's just a couple dozen left. There's not even enough for everybody who's here live to get one. So if this is the first you're hearing of it, you may just want to sneak out for a minute, open a separate tab, go check out with your book. You're just paying shipping. The book is free.
Yeah, and look to see how many we have.
And they'll keep us posted if it sells out during class time today. No, you don't automatically get the book when you sign up. Because a lot of people are not signing up. They're just rolling over, and that we didn't want to be unfair. So everybody has to go and actually physically claim your book, and then you're just paying shipping for it.
Oh yeah, we have a very limited amount left. You
Yeah.
guys.
Go,
And
go,
also,
go.
also, this isn't what Athena was talking about. But if you missed it, if you didn't get the tools for December, we do have your graduation pins available separately in the shop today. So don't miss out on that, I think.
The reason there's some books left is that people thought it was automatic. I've gotten some messages from friends of mine who are like, "I'm so excited about the new book," and I'm like, "You didn't get the new book," and they're like, "How do you know?" And I'm like, "Your name's not on the list," and they're like, "Well, shit, isn't it automatic?" This is why there's books left. I feel really bad for people who don't understand. We've tried to be as clear as we can, so that's the reason there's still books. And even some of my personal friends who are in programs are like, "Well, shit, Athena, now I have to go check out for the book. I didn't realize it wasn't automatic." So if you signed up on accident and you didn't know it was rolling over, all you have to do is write into support.sagegoddess.com and they will make sure you only have one subscription, not to worry.
And you know what? I just heard yesterday that we fixed it so that you can't have duplicate memberships, so it won't be a problem moving forward.
Did you hear that?
You won't be able to have two memberships to the same program, so that's exciting.
I don't know about Crystal Masters pins separate. So, but that is something that Alexis and Karen will help you with. Okay. Yay. Anyway, don't be like my friends who are like, "I'm so excited for my book that I didn't get." I'm giving them a hard time. Okay. You're welcome. Well, anyway, welcome into session 1. I'm going to tell you something. Tonight's class, I know we're already talking about next year's programs, and that's fun. It is. We're excited about it. I also just want to bring you here now, because tonight's class is a big deal to me. Tonight's class, I have taken in my 50 years on this planet, 49.5 years on this planet, I've taken probably a dozen classes on dream work and astral travel and lucid dreaming and all kinds of, and all over the world from different people, okay? Because I've always been like, this next person is going to teach me something I don't already know. And then I go and they're like, if you dream of donkeys, it means that, you know, this. And if you dream of chipmunks, it means this or whatever. They've always been like the lamest classes ever. That's not what tonight is. Tonight is a hybrid class of science and astrology to talk to you about states of consciousness. And tonight's class, so by the way, anything else about classes, by the way, we can talk about it at the end of tonight, or Karen and Alexis, that's their job right now, is to be here to answer your technical questions. So you'll get answers in the feed, you're just not going to get answers from me with my mouth, because I want to focus on the class content.
I do recommend, even though Karen and I are in the feed answering your questions, I recommend being in the here and now.
Yeah.
And that allows us to answer people's questions that are directly about what you're learning tonight, and it makes it so that you're able to focus as well.
And then at the end of class, you know, it's fine to come back to questions about the program, because we don't want to leave you in the lurch, but I really do want to focus on the task at hand, because it's so important. Okay.
And Karen and I will help you. I'm not
They will
not
help you,
refusing
but-
to answer.
yeah.
I'm just saying I suggest you wait.
Yeah. All the questions about class, we're here for it.
Yeah.
And you can always post in the group, and you can always write into support and all of that. Okay. So I'm going to backtrack just for a second. I've had a near-death experience. It's almost 10 years now since I had it. My mom died in 2019, as most of you know. And Alexis, just for me personally, it does get a little distracting. So I don't know, or just because my energy's all over the place too. My mom died in 2019, and I have worked with thousands of people all over the world who told me what it's like to be in the room with someone who's dying. It doesn't really prepare you to be in the room with someone who's dying. So I did not understand what was happening, okay, but now I do. And I've had a more recent experience with another loved one who was having something of a seizure/stroke, where kind of a similar thing happened. When my mom died, it's hard to believe, right? No, sorry, 2021, not 2019. When my mom died, 2021, I really felt like she was already gone. But the nurses kept telling me, no, she's not gone, she's not gone, she's not gone. She can hear you, she can hear you, she can hear you, okay? And for as smart as I am and as many classes in psychology as I've taken, and I've taken classes in neurology and neurophysiology in graduate school, I was looking at her, right? She was not looking at me. She looked like she was gone, but the nurse kept saying, keep talking to her because she can still hear you. She can still hear you. Just keep talking to her. So I did, until the moment when she was off the monitors and everything. I talked to her all the way until the end. Now I know. So her death sent me on a quest of the brain to understand, where was she? Because when I asked, after she died, there's a lot of time, right? The room gets very quiet. The nurses are there. The doctors are there. They're unplugging from equipment. They're preparing, the body and things like that. And you're kind of in this liminal space of like, do I stay, do I go? And just wanting to be there, right? So I just started asking questions, me, of everybody in the room, especially the cardiologist and the on-call physicians. I was like, so what was happening in the brain right there? Right? And tonight's conversation, I do think she was above her body, but tonight's conversation, that's not enough of an explanation for me. I wanted to know what was happening in her brain at that exact moment. Okay? And the doctors are like, well, Athena, there's a lot we don't understand about the brain. And I was like, no, I understand. There's also a lot, I have a PhD, there's a lot I don't understand about the brain. Can you tell me what hertz frequency her brain was operating at? What part, so if she could hear me, what part of her brain was with me and what part of her brain was already gone? And they were like, well, we can't really isolate it. We can tell you there's certain parts of the brain that are still functioning and other parts of the brain that are not functioning and all these things. It took me back to when my aunt was in a coma and my mom was going to visit her all the time. And my mom would say, I know she can hear me. She'll squeeze my hand, right? But she was in a coma. And it was the same question I was asking them, which, asking now that my mom was asking then. What parts of her brain are active? What parts of her brain are not active? What frequency, what brain waves are happening? All of this is related to tonight because, okay? And we'll come back. I just want to make sure those of you in the feed, I know some of you are really experiencing challenges around grief and loss, and I don't want you to feel like I'm ignoring you. So I will be back, and we'll talk about all of this during the Q&A portion of tonight's class, which is from 4:30 to 6. In your brain, there are what are known as brain waves, okay? And I want to kind of break this down for you as simply as I can without being incorrect, okay? Brain waves are measured in hertz, just like your tuning forks are measured in hertz. Just like each one of your stones has a dominant oscillatory rate, right? Which is the frequency that your crystals are vibrating at. Your brain at any particular time has brain waves at a specific hertz frequency, and that changes. It changes based on the time of day, whether you're awake or you're sleeping, right? And by the way, at the end of tonight, I really would love to hear from the medical health professionals, right? Liz is a nurse, about your experiences, because I'm going to lean on you guys a little bit to kind of chime in, and because I would also love to hear what you know and what you might be able to share that could illuminate this conversation for us, because we do have medical doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners and RNs and the CNAs and everything in our community. So I'm really curious to hear your perspectives later. Okay, a brain wave, okay, as simple as I can make this for everybody, is really just the neurons, right? The parts of the cells in your brain communicating. They're just the parts of the cells, in your brain that are talking to each other, okay? And when you are awake, like right now, you're probably in your most awake state of awareness, right? Kind of like when you go to take a class, or you're around on the street, or you're cooking dinner, or where you're following a recipe, something where you have to have some measure of focus. Okay, that's called beta. Yeah, we have lots of medical professionals, so we'll lean on them later. I am a scientific professional, so you'll lean on me now, and then we'll hear the practical side of it a little bit later. So what brain waves are those parts of your brain communicating with each other. When you're in the beta state, that is the hertz frequency of the waves. Okay, the measure of the brain wave right now, me teaching you and you learning, is between 13 and 30 hertz. So if I measure you right now, most of you are going to be a beta. Unless you've been meditating before class, or maybe you took a mild sedative, or you're just extremely relaxed, right? Then you might be the next level down, which is alpha. Okay, and alpha is not really a deep meditative state. Alpha is the state you're in when you're zoning off, when you're daydreaming. Does that ever happen to you, where you're like, you're looking and then you're like, oh, oh yeah, I'm in class. Oops. No, I'm totally paying attention. I can drift into alpha pretty easily. How many of you guys feel like you're in alpha right now as opposed to beta? I won't take it personally, by the way, because it's okay to be very relaxed when you're here in classes, right? Yeah, so if you're a little soft, or you've taken a mild sedative, or you're just kind of like, it's been a long day and your blood sugar's low and you're kind of like do, and you're not fully focused, so you wouldn't get an A on the test, you'd get like a C on the test. That's alpha. Okay, and that's okay. I mean, like I said, unless you're, you probably shouldn't be driving a professional motor vehicle in your alpha state, right? But you can be taking a class, you can be meditating, you can be out in your garden watering, right? You can be walking the dog, right? You're just kind of like in the zone, right? Now, there is a different zone that I'm going to talk about in just a second, but that's beta to alpha. Shamanic journey, and the next level down is called theta. That's when I knock you out during class, is theta. Okay, theta is 4 to 8 hertz, 4-8 hertz, slowing down. Okay, theta is the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious mind. So we're kind of aware that we're here, but we're kind of not. There's some slippage between reality and fantasy, right? I love me some theta state. In hypnosis, the goal of the hypnotist is to get you out of beta into alpha or theta, so that they can imprint you with some new behaviors or new ideas or new, what I call in psychology, schema, right? Some new ways of thinking about yourself or your life. So that's how sometimes in different kinds of hypnosis, they will give you words or phrases or imagery to help you imagine yourself. You are getting sleepy, you are getting thinner, or whatever. Like, they're imprinting new states of consciousness on your brain. So that's what happens there. And that is truly a state of shamanic journey too. Now, below that is called delta. Delta is when you are asleep and you are dreaming. So delta is not something that you are totally aware of. Delta, now here's what's interesting about delta. In delta, you release 2 anti-aging hormones. This is why if you are not sleeping, you're not going to age as well as your cute little 60 and 70 something neighbors who are getting 6 to 8 hours of consistent sleep a night. You release DHEA and melatonin, which are associated with not only deeper sleep and rest, but also with decreased signs of aging, which includes your skin. It includes cortisol. So you know how when most of us go through menopause and we start to get a little tire around the middle, we used to say junk at the trunk, but now we get junk like in the hood. You know what I mean? Like you get this little thing here. This is from not sleeping, because you're not releasing DHEA and melatonin in sufficient quantities. It is one of the reasons why I take melatonin at night. I take a melatonin supplement based on my doctor's recommendation if I'm going through an insomniac period, because there are times where I sleep really well and times when I can't sleep very well. And so my hormone doctor always tells me, if you're in one of those kind of insomniac cycles where you're having anxiety at night, just take a melatonin, because it will actually reduce bloating. If you're bloated, it's usually because you didn't sleep well the night before. Yeah, so a little melatonin is very helpful. It's also, this stage of brainwave is associated with a decrease in cortisol. Cortisol is what's responsible for the muffin top. And so you need to, one of the best ways to make sure that you get into the delta state is to do what we call vagus breathing before you go to bed, okay? So vagus breathing, and we can practice it right now. I actually taught my dad this because he's had blood pressure problems for the first time in 82 years over the last couple of months. And his doctor asked him, do you know what the 4-7-8 breath is? And he looked at me and I'm like, it's the vagus breath, Dad. But I don't have him do 4-7-8. We do 2-3-4. I'm going to explain what it is. If you haven't been in class with me before, you probably haven't heard this. If you have, you're probably like, oh my God, she's talking about it again. But it's so very important, right? This is all related, by the way, to lucid dreaming and astral travel. So I'm getting there. It's just, this is the wind up. I'm a professor. You got to go with me on the long journey. But this is why this class is not a joke. Every class I've taken on lucid dreaming, active dreaming, astral travel has just focused on, like, what if you see a monkey, or what if your teeth fall out, or whatever in your dream. They don't talk about what dreaming is and the different states of active and passive consciousness and how they impact and how you can take control of this process, right? Well, Dr. Weil talks about 4-7-8. He didn't make it up. 4-7-8 actually comes from the Vedas, which are the oldest spiritual texts on the planet. Dr. Weil is just really good, probably not unlike me and other people, at bringing concepts forward and teaching about them. He's very good at what he does, but he's not the father of it, unfortunately. Very few concepts in health and wellness are new to someone who's alive right now. Most of us are standing on big shoulders of people who have understood kind of these ancient techniques and practices. But what the Vedists do, the original doctors from the Hindu tradition who predate all of Greek medicine and all of the original early masters, right? And don't worry about it. But it's good for you to know where the origin of these things are. What the Vedic doctors knew was that there's one nerve in your body that touches every organ. It touches your heart, it touches your digestive system, it touches your brain, it touches every single organ in your body. There's one nerve that does that. And that nerve is responsible for the two parts of your central nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. Deepak teaches about this too, by the way. So this is something that I don't know that it'll come up when we're talking about it, but he definitely talks about this too. Okay, so you have two parts of your nervous system. The one part of your nervous system senses danger and goes, holy shit, we got to get the fuck out of here. And the other part of your nervous system goes, we're safe, we can relax. Okay? So your body is always trying to decide, am I safe or am I in danger? Am I safe or am I in danger? When you feel like you're safe, your body softens, your posture relaxes. Sit back for a second. Anytime you actually just sit back, where your spine is not straight, it's resting against a chair, your entire chakra system opens and the vagus nerve goes, okay? That is your parasympathetic nervous system going, we're okay, right? If there was a problem, she wouldn't be leaning back, the system wouldn't be open, and she wouldn't be breathing this slowly, right? When you are in fight or flight, you hunch forward. You collapse not only your central nervous system, but you actually collapse your spine. That sends a message throughout the entire sympathetic nervous system. We got to get the hell out of here, something's wrong. And you start going like this. and then you don't exhale. And the body goes, oh God, it's true. We're really in trouble. We're really in trouble. All systems alert. And then the cortisol starts to flow, right? And then the adrenaline starts to flow, right? Everything starts to move. And you contract. You seize up. And your body now says, we are in trauma. Where am I? Let me record this room that I'm in, the things that I'm seeing, the people who are here, what I'm wearing. I need to seize this whole moment because this moment is a problem. And you go almost on an energetic, like, detective process now of like, where am I? What's happening? Who's around me? What do I need to? Everything's on high alert. Your digestion stops. Your metabolism stops. Okay? So now you're in massive constipation. Everything contracts. Everything stops. Your heart rate changes, right? Your blood pressure increases because now you're having to vasodilate, right? Okay. So let me go through this one more time. So that is not how you can live, okay? Our ancestors didn't live that way. Our ancestors, if you talk to indigenous teachers, which have been a lot of my teachers over the decades, our ancestors maybe felt like that a couple of times a year, maybe. I mean, probably a couple of times in their lifetime, really. When somebody passed away, when there was a fire in the village, they could probably name the 3 or 6 times in their whole life where they were on red high alert like that, okay? Most of our ancestors did not live like that. They didn't go into social media every day and go, they didn't read the news every day and go, they didn't. Not everything was a red alert. In fact, they really didn't know what was going on outside their village or their family. So again, maybe it would be a couple of times in their lifetime where they would feel this kind of like stop, drop, and roll energy. You and me are noticing it all the time, right? I mean, think about during the pandemic, right? With like, you know, I mean, I'm not making any political statements at all. But like there were like death alerts on the TV of how many people were dying of COVID and like school shutdowns and like all, it was just constantly like breaking news, and we didn't know, like our central nervous system really didn't know how to handle that, and it creates a set of experiences in your physical body, in your energetic body, that your system is not prepared to deal with. When you lose multiple friends and loved ones, right, over the course of a year, shit happens to you back to back. When when it's just sensory overload for you, you've just been through too much, too fast, you know what I mean? And you're just like, I just can't, like, I cannot, I've got what I can handle. That is actually more your central nervous system speaking than even you consciously speaking, right? Yeah, I mean, maybe you got chased by a saber-toothed tiger once, right? And then you had 3 years of relative peace, right? Okay, so what you have to learn to do is breathe. And the vagus breath, to slow down your central nervous system and to calm yourself, is the exhale has to be twice as long as the inhale. So if you inhale for 2, you want to exhale for 4. And it's best if you can do it all the way through your nose and not open your mouth. Breathing through your mouth brings in more carbon dioxide than is necessary, but if you're a mouth breather, I'm not going to judge you. The best breath is a 4, 7, 8, where you actually inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8, but you got to have really strong lungs for that. So some people can't do that. So I recommend a 2, 3, 4, where you inhale for 2. Let's do it together. Let's inhale for 2. Let's hold for 3. And then through your nose, exhale for 4.
I love it so much.
You don't breathe like that when you're freaking out, do you? No. That long exhale makes sure that the entire diaphragm is emptied, and that tells your central nervous system, we're okay, everything is fine. Your central nervous system is operated primarily by parts of your brain that are old and really only sense your emotions. They're not sensing they're sensing what's underneath. what you're saying. So even if you're like, no, I'm fine, everything's fine, your central nervous system is like, she's totally not fine, right? Because it's operating on this kind of subconscious, sublingual level, right? Okay, so, and yes, you can get yourself through nausea with that breath. If you've ever been super nauseated, I get car sick. So if I ever get car sick, if I'm in the passenger seat, I just focus somewhere and do my vagus breathing, and you can get through nausea, you can get through illness, helps with childbirth and labor, all of the things, right? So that's very important. Now, the delta state when you're sleeping is also where your deeper states of empathy and telepathy are activated. This is where you, and theta state too, to a certain extent. This is where you can read minds. This is where you connect to the collective unconscious. So like everybody else, right? This is where you feel bliss. This is where your immune system actually heals. This is where you experience what we call astral travel, is when you are in delta. Now, I want to take you in the other direction, okay? So I'm going to just write this out for you here. I should have made this on a little board, but it's an imperfect world. But you're going to get to see my handwriting, which it is what it is.
You're writing on my little breakdown for the month.
I am. That I stapled to my little
I love that.
my little Jupaduke.
I love my little monthly breakdown.
I loved it too.
They're like, what? It's basically what you guys have in
It's
your
a schedule.
classroom.
It's just I have a little schedule too. Okay. Why not release breath through the mouth? Amanda, scientifically, what I know from my people is that it's better to breathe through your nose. And you can go down a rabbit hole and look at that. But it's not terrible if you exhale through your nose. But like people who, scientifically it's been proven that if you are an open mouth sleeper, you don't sleep as well. It's better to train yourself to sleep with your mouth closed. And both my kids sleep like this.
Is there a specific reason why you, for the vagus nerve, that you release the breath through the nose instead of the mouth?
Well, it's because you don't have to, but that's what I was saying. It's better if you do everything through your mouth.
Oh,
through your
yeah,
nose.
that's what you're just saying. You were already answering the question that I was reading.
Yeah. I don't do a ton of those vagus breaths. I do it until I feel centered. A few of those, you'll be centered. You know what I mean? Just even half a dozen. I've trained my dad to do it when he's walking, right? So yeah, just like, I want to put I have chip clips, for like chips at home. I just want to put chip clips on the kids. Because literally, I go to wake them up in the morning. Zoe sleeps like she's on a roller coaster. She sleeps on her back with her arms up in the air, with her mouth wide open, like she's on the Matterhorn.
She puts her arms up?
Yeah, she zooms.
Oh, interesting.
And she did it in my belly, too. So they say that the ultrasounds of your kids are how they're going to sleep. So Nick, in my belly, was always on his side with his little paws right next to his face like this.
Aww.
And that's how he sleeps now, still on the side. And Zoe was always like zooming. I don't know what she was doing, like on the Matterhorn, and she still sleeps like that. These are belly breaths. Yeah, so belly breaths depend on where you're drawing the oxygen from. So again, you're not going... nervous breathing happens right up here, is real high and tight, but belly breaths are like your belly should puff out a little bit. People don't like to do that when they're in public. Until they get older, I don't care anymore if my belly puffs out when I'm breathing. It means I'm doing a good job. But when I was young, I remember going to a breath circle or a pranayama workshop. I was like 20, and everybody was like belly breathing, and I was like, I don't want my belly to do that or whatever. And now I'm like, totally do the thing. So as you get older, you care less about whether you're diaphragmatic breathing or chest breathing. But diaphragmatic breathing is when you really open the whole cavity and you look poofy for a minute until you let the air out. It's air, for God's sake. Okay, let me show you this so that it makes sense to you. Okay? Don't look at this. Here's your schedule. So beta is like, if you're at the mall right now, you know how you go to the mall and like you're at Macy's and you want to figure out how to get to Sephora? You are here. Okay, if you're awake and you're listening to me, you're probably right there. And then you start to go down. Alpha is when you zone out. Theta is shamanic journey work, and then delta is Zoe on the Matterhorn. Okay. Up here is where I'm interested in talking to you about today too, because we know that down here at delta is power state, right? That's REM sleep. That's you dreaming. That is you astral projecting. I mean, that is you so rested and so in a deep dream state that you are able to leave your body and have these extra sensory experiences, okay? But I want to talk about up here for a minute, okay? Indulge me if you will. Because in my experience, this is what happened to my mom. So after you leave beta, you go above to these higher states of vibration. Okay, so again, beta is 13 to 30 hertz. I'm going to play something for you too. Actually, will you grab my laptop? I wanted to play them some gamma waves to show you what it sounds like. And thank you for that, Terry, by the way. I'm glad you could read it because my handwriting is not as what it used to be. Okay. When you leave beta, you go to something called epsilon. Epsilon is basically 30 to 40 hertz. And epsilon, epsilon and gamma, 30 to 40 hertz, and then 40 to 80 hertz, higher frequencies. Yeah, so this is Elsie, to answer your question. This is when doctors say they no longer, at these waves, they no longer detect a heartbeat. They call it suspended animation. Okay? They know that the limbic system is still functioning. So you're still hearing, you're still smelling, but you can't, the modern parts of your brain, you can't think. And oftentimes your seeing is cut off too. So like the eyes will be, off somewhere else because the optic nerves have stopped, but the waves are still operating, and so you're able to hear and you're able to smell. This is when you get to the epsilon and gamma, there is a happiness, right? There is a state of union with all that is the way they describe it, okay? And it is actually, if you can get to this state of awareness, right? And this is just the Greek alphabet. So gamma is Gamma, Rama in Greek. And then epsilon is E in Greek, Epsilon. And then lambda is the highest state of consciousness at right around 40 to 80 hertz. But most people have never had a documented experience of lambda consciousness because it's not, the idea is that you can't be in a physical body and have that state of consciousness, okay? So you are on a broad spectrum where most of the time you're operating here, okay? And we know that big meditation and healing happen here, and we know sleep happens here. But what's happening up here? Think of this as getting into, in some ways, your lower chakras and really stabilizing your body and calming and soothing and relaxing and surrendering, right? And you're feeling all of these things. From my perspective, these upper states of awareness, epsilon, gamma, and lambda, which are higher hertz frequencies than beta. Okay, so beta is I'm awake and I'm participating in this conversation with you right now. But I can go above this. This is thought to be, and I will tell you, there are people in the Silicon Valley, for example, who are hiring consultants to help them get them and their teams to gamma states of awareness with machinery, by being hooked up to machines, by listening to certain binaural beats during the day, They're having meetings where they get everybody together. They're working with plant medicines that promise to get them into gamma state. And then what they're doing is they're doing think tank meetings in gamma state. They're monitoring all the participants. They're monitoring the brain waves. Again, this is neurons communicating in the brain. They're waiting until everybody gets to this certain hertz frequency, and then they're brainstorming. So how do we improve this computer? How do we improve our performance? How do we build a new microwave? How do we change this problem that we're having right now? So this is thought to be what they call, flow state, okay? Optimal performance for the brain, where the body is not participating, but the higher states of consciousness are participating. Does that make sense? And they are literally connecting everybody to brainwave monitors to make sure nobody goes outside the band of 40 to 80 hertz. Now, one of the things that I think, so the reason why I'm telling you today's class is kind of like solving some problems for me is, first of all, I want to understand what it means when we're actually dreaming and what's the goal. And then what's the difference between astral projection when we're in delta state and we're on the Matterhorn versus being awake. And either through music, through toning, through sound, through altered states of consciousness, we get to these higher states of consciousness. Now again, nobody's looking at each other, nobody's talking. Those are different neural operations. But they can hear each other, they can smell each other, and they can process information with each other. They just can't talk, and they can't look at each other. This is where my mom was. I know that she could hear me. I know that she was still on the planet, but she was not going to talk to me again. But I knew she knew we were there. And this was the piece where I was asking all those medical doctors, very smart human beings, in the room, where is she right now? What is the neural communication? What brainwave frequency is she operating at right now? And which parts of the brain are active and not active? And they were like, well, we're not really sure. I've answered my own question. So this is why I'm trying to bring this to you. When I was having my near-death experience, I could not talk to the surgeon. I remember hearing them say, we're losing her, and they were putting a monitor on me, and they were like doing all the chest compressions, or they were doing all the things, not full chest compressions, but they were worried about me because my blood pressure and my pulse rate were decreasing so rapidly. I could hear them. I could kind of see a light in the room. I knew they were all rushing around, but I couldn't respond. I couldn't grab them. I was still in this other, so I could hear them, but I could also hear in the spirit world, and I was communicating on the spirit side saying, this is really great. I don't want to leave this place. If my kids are going to be okay, please don't send me back, is what I was saying on the spirit side. But I could hear the doctor saying, we're losing her. Where's the monitor? Hook it up. All these things, lights, and all this stuff. So I could hear both what was happening in the room with the surgeon, and I could also hear on the spirit side me saying, but I don't want to leave here. This is really great. And so to them, I probably looked like I was dying, even though I still had a pulse. But on the spirit side, I was having full communications on the other side. Wow. And so now I know what was happening was, I think I was probably at that gamma state. The same thing happens at gamma that happens at delta, but you're not asleep in gamma. So where are you? And my answer is, you are in that alternate dimension, right? And it's a liminal space. You're not quite here and you're not quite there. So you can hear, you can sense people who are having a stroke, people who are in a coma, people who are passing away, and also infants, right? So babies are in the same space. Babies are in the same space. They're not quite really making eye contact with you, right? Most of the time their eyes are closed. I couldn't get Nick to open his eyes after he was born. He literally was screaming, but he was like this the whole time, right? Like, I kept going, open your eyes, little man, right? And he finally did. But babies are in that liminal space too. They're leaving the other side, and they're coming here, and it's like, probably the last hugs and kisses from the spirit world, right? Before they breathe out into this abyss that we're in together. So they can hear us going, come on, we're so excited. And meanwhile, they're like, okay, I'm going to do this. This is, wow, I'm really doing this. But this is why babies don't feel pain in the birth canal. You don't feel pain when you're in gamma. This also, from my understanding, is what happens when people are severely injured. If they have especially traumatic head injuries, they don't suffer, right? Because this is all happening, they have no sense of pain. So that's the great comfort that comes to people who have traumatic injuries. And I've heard this myself, again, from clients and from doctors too. They're in this liminal space. They do not feel those injuries. They are not, they can hear, but they can't feel. Their nervous system is not feeling. They're just aware because they're in between, and then they finally either stay here or they go to the other side. Does that make sense? Okay, so coming back to, I know that was really long, but I really wanted to share all of that with you. When you go into deeper states of meditation, this is why your sense of smell is so important. This is why your sense of your heightened senses of awareness are so important. And this is why it's important to, why I'm always telling people, don't participate in the feed, just fully be in your experience, right? When we're meditating or when we're in elder council or whatever, because if you're trying to, and by the way, I'm not harping on any of you who are in the feed right now at all, but I'm just saying, like, when you're typing in the feed, what state of conscious awareness are you in? You have to be in what? You have to be in beta, right? If you are typing, you are in beta.
Typing equals beta.
No, you have to, because it requires the prefrontal cortex to be fully engaged, to look at those letters and put those together and put your thoughts together and organize them, and do you put a question mark or whatever. So that means I can't even get you to alpha. And then if I can't get you to alpha, I can't get you to theta. And if I can't get you to theta, I certainly can't get you the fuck to gamma.
The fuck to gamma.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, when I see people typing in the feed, what my assumption is, they're full beta right now, which is fine. That's where they want to be. Maybe they're not comfortable zoning out. Maybe they're not ready to meditate, right? Maybe they've got so many responsibilities at home, they can't tune in and drop out. You know what I mean? Or tune out and drop in, or whatever it is. They can't, right? So their way of engaging is to stay fully in beta, because that's where they have to operate from, right? When I see people drop out of the feed, I'm like, okay, they're probably at least in alpha. And then when I hear from them at the end of the ceremony, they went straight theta, sometimes to delta. And then when people are like, I legit passed out, I was like, my work here is done, right? Mic drop moment, because I got them to theta at least, and I might have gotten them to delta too. In fact, if they woke up later, then I definitely got them to delta town, right? So what I want to share with you today, again, based on everything that I have learned over all these years, is that there's two ways to go really deep. In the Himalayan ridge, there are monks, and I've been reading about this and studying this for a long time. Again, might not be as interesting to you as it is to me. But part of it is selfish, my interest in it. They never wear shoes. They barely wear clothing. They wear like a little wrap around themselves, okay, almost like a toga type of thing. It's a very thin material. And they walk in the snow. And do you know what happens to the snow where they walk? It melts. It melts. They are not responsive to temperature, to external temperature. They influence external temperature. Most people, if they went out and walked, I mean, some of you live where it snows. I've been in full, torrential hailstorms and snowstorms and the biggest blizzard in Indiana history and all of those things. most people could not walk for hours in the snow and melt it all around them, but these monks do. And when their brain state is measured, they are measuring at states where doctors would say that they are not fully alive. Okay, they're operating at, most of them are operating at what's known as hypergamma. It's fascinating. So they are operating at such a high frequency that they are no longer susceptible to hot or cold temperatures. Now, there are other people like, Tony Robbins and stuff who kind of operate the same frequency or talk about the same frequency, that they can walk on hot coals because they're hypergamma, and so they're not, the hot doesn't burn them and the cold doesn't freeze them. Is this interesting to you? This shit rocks my world, man. I'm here for it. And it's funny because I don't wear shoes at all during the year, even in the rain. People always make fun of me, and I'm like, I'm totally fine. I'm not saying I'm a monk at all. I'm not hypergamma. I want to be. I probably have been hypergamma. I'm not today, right? So hypergamma is this pursuit of people who are trying to operate at what most of us think of as such a high frequency that you're no longer alive or human. And these are the same monks who actually can control their own death, right? And their body shrinks, like the rainbow body that we've talked about before. That all happens at hypergamma. So I want to play, this is not a hypergamma frequency, this is a gamma frequency. This is... that I'm going to play for you right now. This is, and I'll post the link to this for you. It's in the comments, and I've also read this as well. Gamma waves, gamma brain waves function best if you are really hydrated. So what those monks do is they also drink a lot of water. So they drink a lot of water, they listen to these higher frequency tones. And this one is at, I believe this is 50 hertz. Okay, they say this helps not only with raising your frequency, they say this helps with timeline jumping, which is what a lot of you call astral travel. I'm going to come back and define my terms in a minute. Also helps with memory, because the hypergamma activates the part of your limbic system where your memories are stored. So what some people do, no, this is not going to get me kicked off YouTube. This is on YouTube, Lauren, but thank you, darling. What some people do is when they have to take a test or an exam, they will intentionally overhydrate, get into gamma, because all levels of your memory are restored, including memories from past lives. So I've had friends who've said that they're able to access things they learned in past lives by timeline jumping at this frequency. But it is important to hydrate. And like I said, some people say overhydrate, but it's because there is a connection in your body between levels of hydration and brain waves. Okay? You ready? Just close your eyes. And do your vagus breathing. Well, no, obviously, Sandy, don't close your eyes if you're driving. Okay, now
Just taking a picture because they're asking for the link.
yeah, we will put it for you. If you've heard, I thought I had saved the link for you on my phone, but I don't see it here. If you have heard the audio that came out from NASA this year, have you guys heard it? Of the sound of a black hole. Have you heard the sound? Let me see if I can pull this up for you. That was just released by NASA. So those are, don't let yourself be scared by black hole sounds. I think it's because Hollywood movies have used it for things that are not good. Those are at a similar hertz frequency, okay? The outer reaches of our solar system are operating at a higher frequency than our current dimensional awareness. Does that make sense? So even on your best, this is the upshot, even on your best day, when you're super, super great at work and you're paying all kinds of attention to the people and the things and you got your to-do list done and you go to bed going, yay me or whatever, you are at a 5 and the universe is at a 10. That's the basic upshot. Yeah, if you're just coming in now, it might be kind of hard to catch up, but you could always go back and watch the beginning and then stay for the Q&A. Some classes get a little complicated. Today was definitely one of those, right? Woo! Even on your best day, you're at a 5, the universe is at a 10. I would say at a minimum. So what I want to do now is take you in to talk about our worksheets. And we're going to bring a little bit of astrology into this, right? But the upshot is that lucid dreaming, from my perspective, and I'm just saying this, I don't have any way to prove this. This is my own theory, okay? I think we've all been taught that the best way to lucid dream and astral travel is to be asleep. All of my research has led me to feel and to think that that's not true. Because those are actually lower frequencies, and the hypergamma and the lambda and the epsilon are higher frequencies that you don't achieve through sleep. You achieve through trance. These monks are achieving it through intense meditation, but they're not asleep, and through death, because that's when you transcend that doorway. So from my perspective, if we really want to start to talk about prophetic dreaming, lucid dreaming, I think we almost have to take the word dream out. Now let me clarify what I mean. It's kind of like, you know how I really screw things up when I start talking about past lives, but there's no past, and so then you're like, well, what the fuck are you even talking about? I'm kind of doing the same thing here to you, okay? I think we've all said lucid dreaming so much that we think we can only do it when we're asleep. But I don't think you're just dreaming when you're asleep. Does that make sense? I think you're dreaming when you're not in your waking conscious My name is Athena, state of awake awareness. Okay? When I'm in these different states of consciousness, I'm not me anymore. Not just this one me. I'm 100 me's, right? Kind of like remote viewing. I mean, I think the word dream is where we get confused. And even when teaching you this month, like we've all been calling it lucid dreaming and prophetic dreaming and all these things because we don't have other language for it. That's why I keep saying past lives. I think it was Bobby, like last week, it was like, but you said there's no past lives, because I said past life online. I'm like, I know, but I still don't have good language to describe it, so I got to call it a past life, right?
Alternate life.
Alternate life, right?
Prophetic.
Yes, it is. I like that. It's very much like the Toltecs. The Toltecs didn't think you were only dreaming when you were asleep, right? They talked about the Olmecs and the Toltecs, and I have some Toltec origins, talk about dreaming awake. Right, that you're dreaming into the future. You're dreaming in the future while you're awake. That it isn't like you have to lay down and wait till you fall asleep and hope for the best and, oh, am I going to remember my dreams? It's almost irrelevant whether you remember your dreams or not. Your dreams are one way. Here's the other way I think about it. I think dreams are the Muggles' way of astral traveling. Think about it this way. I have a lot of friends, and I bet you do too, and family members, probably more family members than friends, who the only way they're going to astral travel is for God to legit do it between 2 and 4 a.m. Because if they're not passed out, A, they have no interest, B, they wouldn't know how to do it, and C, they have no interest. Like they're not here for astral travel or projection or anything. So if Jesus doesn't come and take them at 2 a.m. and deliver them back safely in their bed at 4 a.m., that's not going to happen. So I think for a lot of people who are not interested in what is a trance state or how do I activate these higher levels of conscious awareness that still take me out of beta but take me somewhere different, it's their only chance is to do it while they're asleep. For the rest of us, I think we can do it at any time, anywhere. And I want to talk about how to do that. Does that make sense? But I have a lot, and I know no judgment. Like, they're not here for that. My friends and family who are like that, that's just not their life path, is to be doing all that stuff. So if you go back to your worksheets, we kind of give you a little section on prophetic dreaming. Prophetic dreaming is seeing the future in dreams. But like I say, I don't think it has to happen in a dream. And yes, there will be a whole hour and a half of Q&A tonight. So, anything that's on your mind, we can talk about it later too. During a prophetic dream, you might see images, symbols, events, people, animals, anything that shows you a story of what's to come, right? Something that, it can even be a little edge of it, like the whole thing isn't the future, but like a little edge of whatever you're seeing is going to happen ahead of time, right? Yeah. I actually have a teacher who's one of the gurus of timeline jumping too. I'm always skeptical of people who call themselves, gurus of things, but there are quite a few people in the field who are very gifted at this kind of multi and interdimensional work. My experience, the best way to do it, and the best teachers I have who have done it, is through plant teachers like ayahuasca and wachuma and some of the other plant medicines. But if you can't do that work, you can find people who will take you into trance state. You can also do things like sweat lodges and vision quests where you're not quite working with plant teachers so much, but you're working with, with heat, which will help to expel a lot of energy and will transform your state of awareness too, because different amounts of heat and also cold and pressure. That's why people do ice baths. One of my favorite teachers really believes in those, deep cold ice plunges and stuff. I don't do that. I'm too much of a hedonist. I don't want to plunge myself into cold water. It's not that I don't think it's valuable. It's just I don't like water in general, and I don't want to be in a bunch of cold water for a long time at all. I'm just too old for that. But if it had happened and I was like, oh, you're calling him a guru, sorry. But anyway, you know what I mean? Like, the reality is anybody can jump timelines at any time. And the reality is, too, you're jumping them already. You're probably jumping them now. I mean, people do it and they don't even know what they're doing. That's what deja vu is. When you're like, oh my God, I've been here before, or I've felt that before, or something's off here, or I know this person. You're already doing it. the process is just to become consciously aware of it and be able to do it on demand or when you want to do it, as opposed to just having these random experiences where you're like, oh, this area seems familiar. Oh, I think I've met this person before. Where would this be? You just become more consciously aware of it. Float tanks. I've done float tanks.
We both have.
Yeah, we both have. We did it. That's not happening for me ever again either.
It's not my favorite thing.
If you have colored hair, it's just a disaster. Again, there's just like, it's very Kardashian of me to say that I don't want to do it because of my hair color, but I really don't want to do it because of my hair color. It takes all the hair color out.
Yeah, I didn't love it either. But my boyfriend David does love it. He likes to go at least once a year. He says it helps with his back pain, just because there's no tension or anything.
Yeah.
So he loves it, and I've heard really great things from other people. I wasn't the biggest fan. I didn't make it through the entire session.
Did Brooklyn? I can't remember. I did make it through, but it wasn't my favorite thing I've ever done. But if you love float therapy, if you love cold plunges, like I'm just telling you, those are some ways that that people in my sphere of work say are powerful for timeline jumping and shifting states of awareness without any kind of supplement or medicine, or you know what I mean. So like when you're doing the tank work, you can actually feel like you're working with plant medicine, even if you're not. It can take you to a really I think a higher state of conscious awareness, but you have to be able to fully relax, right? So if it isn't your thing, it isn't your thing. Yeah. So people either love it or they don't like it. If you are somebody who doesn't like to be in closed containers, it probably would not be your jam. Or dark tight spaces.
Yeah.
It probably would not be your favorite thing. Okay, so astral travel, the way we define it is when the astral body leaves the physical body to travel to another world or plane. This is on page 1 of your worksheets. Sometimes we call this practice tunneling or teleportation. The astral body is what contains your life force and your imagination. It's the thing that leaves when you die. So that's why this physical body shrivels up and goes away, because it's really your astral body that's keeping your physical body going, right? You are the fuel in the tank, as it were. Okay. In that separated state, your astral body can travel across space and time, can bring back information, healing. That's what I'm saying. You're already doing timeline jumping, timeline hopping. We can also travel in the earthly plane outside of our bodies. When we lucid dream, we're aware that we are dreaming. So this is the main difference for me. When you know you're doing it, when you know you're out of your body and you're aware of it, that's a lucid dream. I don't lucid dream very much, but I have had quite a few dreams where I've been aware that I'm outside of my body. You have too.
Yeah, yeah.
Not often, right? But where I'm like, oh, my body's down there and I'm up here doing something else that my body isn't participating in. That's lucid dreaming. Does that make sense? Yeah. It is interesting, I will tell you, because a lot of the plant medicines help with a lot of modern diseases and pain. There have been times where I've had pain from MS that has only been helped by plant medicine and not by traditional pain medication. But I think that's part of why there's so many laws in place to regulate plant medicine, is because it's a threat to to our system of medicine in the country. That's a conversation for another time. Okay. So when you're aware of it, my body's down there and I'm up here, that's lucid dreaming. When you're not aware of it, that's astral travel. Does that make sense? Yeah, remember, I'm coming back to questions at the end tonight, and nothing's off limits. We can talk about whatever. I don't have all the answers. I mean, I don't even have all the answers about tonight, but I have a lot of really good questions. So, right? I know. So anyway, we gave you the quiz. Do you have vivid dreams that you remember after you wake up? Do you ever dream about something that actually came to pass? Do you feel awake inside your dreams? Do you ever receive solutions to problems in your dreams? Do you think it's a gift of yours? How do you use it now? How will you use it going forward? I'm not a prophetic dreamer, but I do... my teacher calls it dream walking. I do dream walk a lot, and I do have extensions of my waking state relationships in my dreams. sometimes even with you guys and with my team, and like I'll have full meetings, Sage Goddess meetings asleep. I've designed products in my sleep. I mean, there's so many. Like I was playing with my Queen of Hearts pendulum this morning. That was from a lucid dream. I knew I was dreaming. I knew I was drawing it, and I was like, oh, that's a pendulum. I'll have to remember that in the morning. Like, I mean, that totally happens. And they're very normal. Like, oh yeah, we're talking about this, but that conversation never happened. And I've had to go to people on my team before and go, did we talk? I just want to make sure.
All the time.
Yeah, she knows. Like, did we actually talk about this?
Oh, we talked about this, and I'm just like, I wasn't in that lucid dream with you. I mean, I was there, but like, I'm not remembering it. You know, sorry.
I keep a notepad on my nightstand, and a lot of people who lucid dream do the same thing, because we wake up and we know that we've designed the thing, we've had the conversation, we've written the song, we've dream walked into somebody else's story, and we don't want to forget what the thing was. I had a very lucid dream last week about one of my friends who's in our community, and she and I were shopping. It was somewhere in Europe, and I bought her Christmas gift in the dream, and I was so excited about it. And then I bought things to like decorate it. So the next morning I texted her, and she lives in Florida, and I was like, oh my God, I had this dream last night. It was lucid dreaming, and you and I were shopping, and I actually got your Christmas gift, and now I have to figure out how to make it for you. I'm going to try to buy all the things. And she was like, no shit. And she texted, she's like, I'm going to give away your Christmas gift, surprise. She texted me a picture of the Christmas gift she bought me, which is almost the exact same thing I got her in the dream. I mean, literally, they're both brass candlesticks. Like, what's the chances that, like, an ornate, right, that nothing we'd ever seen before? She's like, I swear, I just went to this vintage store and I was going to surprise you with it, but this is what I got you for Christmas. And she's texting me the picture. Like, this happened a couple days ago. So stuff like this happens all the time. You get used to it, and then you stop, like, at least me, I start going, well, it's not even, like, all that magical, until you realize, no, it is pretty magical, especially given the frequency that it happens with. So some types of prophetic dreams, but not all. You could have a cautionary dream. Again, I don't have those, but maybe you do. I do get directional dreams, especially as it pertains to Sage Goddess, right? Apparition dreams, where you see someone who's passed away or you get a message from them. I mostly see living people in my dreams. I don't see a lot of dead people in my dreams. So, but I do, and I see webs. So I often don't just see you, I'll see you and your mom. Or I don't see you, but I'll see you and your sister or whatever. I see people's soul webs, and then I'll be like, well, your sister was there too. And it's like, why was she there? What was she doing? But we, you know, everybody's soul families have known each other in different ways. So like, your sister now could have been my mom then, or my aunt or whatever. Like, we're all in these weird webs. So I see the webs. You could hear voices. You could have a dream about feelings. You know, like really empathizing with someone deeply, which is pretty cool too. So the 12th house in astrology is what we call your doorway to dreaming. It kind of shows you, the soul webs are really cool. It kind of shows you what you are likely to experience in what we call the dreamscape, based on the sign that is on the cusp or the doorway of your 12th house. And the cusp of your 12th house is the line between your 11th house and your 12th house, not your 12th house and your first house.
Do you want me to use this camera here to show?
No, it's all right. Okay, see, here's a chart. This isn't your chart. Am I allowed to show this? This is Tara's chart.
Yeah, she said it was fine.
Okay, all right.
She gave us permission.
You're looking at Tara's chart, everybody.
If you're in Living Magic next year, Living Astrology, you'll learn all about Tara's chart.
Okay. So your chart is like a pie, and it goes from the first house down here to the 12th house, okay? The cusp of your 12th house is the line between the 11th slice and the 12th slice. This is slice 11, see right there? This is slice 12, see right there? It is not the line between the 12th and the 1st, down here. You gotta go back, okay? This line between 11 and 12 is your cusp. It's the doorway to your 12th house. Now you can see hers is Aquarius. Mine is Virgo.
Mine is Libra.
And hers is Libra.
One of my only air sign. Well, I don't have a lot of air, but I have that.
I don't have much Earth, but I got that. My Venus is in Virgo, and then my 12th house cusp is Virgo. Okay, so we call that the sign that's on your 12th house. Okay? So we always start with Aries because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Right? So it always starts the conversation. Karen's is in Cancer. It's interesting to see the feed, right? Pisces, Virgo, Aquarius, Scorpio. Got the whole alphabet fully represented here, right? So if you're Aries on the 12th house, no surprise, your dream time is very action-oriented. When you get to mine, it's not going to surprise you that I dream about work all the time because my cusp is Virgo. So I'm like, and I used to have dreams about being late to school all the time when I was a teacher, like walking into the classroom and all the students are there and I'm the only one. Or like when I was in school, I would dream that I showed up and it was a test and I hadn't studied for it and I just fucking failed it. That's Venus or Virgo on the cusp. Okay. All right. So if you're Aries on the cusp of the 12th house, your dreams show you your strength. You might be in battle in the sports arena, saving someone from a burning building. There's a lot happening, right? And Elizabeth's asking, what if there's 2 between those lines? It does land on a sign. Tara confirmed this. So it is, no matter where your 12th house is, it could be very, very close, but it is landing somewhere in the sign. So you just need to look for that line. Yeah.
And make sure that when you're looking at this, that your chart is on the Placidus.
And
style.
we'll explain that later next year. Not now.
But if you have it on the whole chart, then it's gonna look like it's between 2 different ones.
Put it on Placidus. Don't go messing with your settings until Tara tells you to.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's Taurus on the 12th house, you're Taurus, right? So you're like all about beauty and it's lush and it's abundant and you have everything you need. And but this is also about you being enough and having enough. There can be hidden riches, what you really need and what you value, what brings you pleasure and security, money and finances, things of beauty, all of that, right? Again, it's very much like what the signs are themselves. If you're Gemini on the 12th house cusp, your dreamscape, you're probably not shutting up, right? Is time of birth important for this placement? Yes.
Yeah, time of birth is important for house placements.
Yeah, it does impact the house placements. So you do need to be somewhat accurate with your time of birth. Not everything, as you know, for a child is impacted by birth time, but this one is. Yeah. Okay, so you're probably talking a lot, right? It's interesting that we even said that. Scientists have yet to fully make sense of the ephemeral firing of neurons in one's head, which is all about your brain waves and how your brain waves vacillate or oscillate. Like, it is really interesting to me, and I'm pausing here talking about Gemini on the 12th house, that I have talked to at least half a dozen really smart medical doctors, including a neurologist that I really respect, who can't really explain a lot of what we talked about tonight. They'll just say, well, there's only so much we know, right? The brain is still the greatest, frontier of discovery for humanity. I hope in my lifetime we understand more about X, right? They acknowledge that the waves operate in the way that they do, but how a monk can get to a state of hypergamma without any sedatives or medications and still be alive and be able to come back and be fully lucid afterward, like, they still can't really explain how we do that. So anyway, it's just such an interesting philosophy for me, and it's an area, I guess, because it's so misunderstood and there's still so much research to be done, that I don't think will happen in our lifetime, but we'll get closer. Our kids and our grandkids will certainly understand more, right? Anyway, so you are just like a Gemini, right? Chatty, all about connections and exchanges. Conversations are happening a lot in your dreams. Probably, if you're Gemini in the 12th house, you're probably finishing conversations that you're starting at work. You know what I mean? Like, and now it keeps going and going and going and going, right? So unresolved conversations, challenges, all of that can get worked out there. Cancer in the 12th house, emotions, inner child, no surprise, right? So this is a lot about friendship, home, connection, love, unconditional love, parenting, parent-child relationships. It's also about being safe, being cared for, and being at home. Cancers are always wanting to be at home, right? So prophetic dreams about family members, food, plants, the land, and the country or the home where you will live one day, which takes us back to astrocartography and psychocartography from earlier in the year too, which is another gift, right? Leo in the 12th house, larger than life. It's your metaphorical canvas, honey. Your dreams, your passion, your creativity, where you're going to shine, what lights you up. Children, creative pursuits, love, romance, big moments, and famous people. This is not my placement. Mine is really boring. Every number, color, symbol tells a story, so you have to look closely. Like, my dreams are always really cryptic. Unconscious worries, feelings of inadequacy. You weren't good enough, you were late to class, the students didn't have their exam, right? People booed you off the stage, right? Also ways to solve problems. I design products in my dream time, which tools to work with, health, healing, small animals, and things that need to be fixed. Makes you want to never go to sleep again, doesn't it? Boring.
I think it's boring.
And I don't have dreams about small animals. I mean, that would be fucking awesome if I did. It's all about work or something that's wrong, or like, you could have done this better, or try to fix this, or why didn't you do this today? Or there's a lot of that in my dreams.
You always do everything really well, though.
Well, thank you.
You make things happen.
I make it happen, but then I wake up in the morning and I'm like, God, I already worked all night. Now I got to work again.
I don't think it's boring. I'm grateful for all of you, 12th house Virgo.
Oh my God. I have a friend who's like me. Her cusp is Virgo in the 12th house. And she's like, I feel like I need to retire every day. I'm like, I know. It's just like, I already worked. Libra in the 12th house would be really fun, I would imagine, right?
It's mine.
Yeah. So, you know, it's beauty, and it's friends and lovers, and business partnerships, and art and justice, and balance, and seeing things from other people's point of view, and not every flaw that you have. So that sounds really nice. Katrina says she dreams about talking animals all the time.
What's that?
I'm going to dream hop over to your dreams. Make you go do mine.
Make you go do mine.
You better clock in and clock out, honey. Scorpio in the 12th house. I'm not sure I want to live there either. That gets weird sometimes. That's like, you know, weird sex, wealth, power, taboos.
Weird.
You know, magic and mystery. I mean, listen, I don't know what weird is, honestly, in my life. I've blurred the line too many times, but you know what I mean. You go to Funky Town. How many Scorpios do I have? And what are your dreams like? If you have really intense dreams, you probably are on that Scorpio cusp, I'm imagining, right? Dark, intense, death, transformation. I've had a lot of ones that kind of seem Scorpio-like. Like, I've had dreams where, like, I'm walking on the ceiling. Have you ever had those dreams before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally.
Like, I'm, like, almost crawling on a ceiling, and I look down, and I'm like, oh, my God, I'm on the ceiling.
Yeah.
You've had those? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've had some that are Scorpio-like. Sagittarius in the 12th house. You're just fun. Right? I mean, really. It's like a cloud of fireflies. It wants to rise up and glow. Freedom, inspiration. You're going to different places. You're going to see all kinds of fun things, religion, beliefs, truth. A lot of travel. You're never in the same place twice. I have another friend who's on the Sagittarius cusp, and she's like, her biggest challenge is that where a lot of you are. What's it like? Tina and some of you who have it. My one friend says, Athena, the biggest challenge for me is I wish I knew where I was. Because it was so amazing. Like, I have these dreams and I'm like, where is this? If this even exists, I want to know where it is so I can go and find it. Does that ever happen to you if you have Sag on the 12th house? And I'm like, God, I don't even know. Like, if you have a dream and you really would like to go to that place, it's not like you can Google search an image of it, right? So I'm just curious if you guys have that experience too. Capricorn on the 12th house is probably a lot like mine, right? Where it's earthy, it's about work, business, leadership, but more on leadership, right? There can be the shadows. These all have shadow sides too, like fear of failure, because that comes with the Virgo one too for me. Like, oh, you screwed up that class, you failed the exam, you showed up to class naked, everybody laughed at you. Like, a lot of that stuff happens. But you also, there's it both with Capricorn and I've noticed with Aquarius, there's kind of like a taking on of responsibility for the collective a little bit. So you can have dreams of like, if there's like a war going on, or like something in the collective, that can show up because there's like a human service dynamic that some of you have in your chart, and so that, and especially if that's reinforced by like a sun in Aquarius or a moon in Capricorn, something like that. Aquarius in the 12th house, it's going to get weird here too, right? Extraterrestrials. All the way to social justice, right? So like aliens are now writing the Constitution, and so we all have better rights, right? And then you wake up and that didn't happen. So I think this placement, how many of you have it in Aquarius? I think you guys are about like visioning a new future, like visioning a new consciousness. And I think that's important because I think your prophetic dreams could actually be a vision of what's possible for humanity. Remember, Aquarius is the most watery of the air signs, right? It's the water bearer. And so it is actually a very prophetic sign, especially if it's reinforced with other Aquarian placements. So the Fiesta platter of dreaming, that's exactly right. You guys are like the appetizer combo.
That's what Tara has, I see.
Yeah, Tara has it. It's got to be fun. Honestly, it's got to be better than Virgo. I think pretty much almost anything is better than Virgo. And then Pisces on the 12th house is going to be fun too, right? Although it can run to the shadow side of pain, suffering, trying to help people solve their problems. But there's a lot of like spirituality, faith, religion, mystical, magical, the realms of dragons and fairies, and all of that comes into play with Pisces more than any other sign. And then on page 6, that was the end of it. Sorry, we got to the end of it. So we started with Aries and we came to Pisces, which was the end. Page 6 in my worksheet is your tools for the month, which we will talk about next time. The end. So, gosh, and I'm only like a few minutes over where I wanted to be, and I thought I went on way too long about consciousness, but I do think the consciousness conversation is critical because like I said, for me, it answers a lot of questions about what happens when we die, and we're not able to talk anymore, but other parts of our brain are still functioning, or coma, or like me with a near-death experience, right? And so why is it that someone can still hear you but they can't respond to you? And it's because their brain waves are operating on a different frequency than yours, and probably they're better able to communicate than you are. It just doesn't look like it because of how they're reacting to you, which is a very human third dimension experience. So, and then the other thing that I really hope was a contribution today to your thinking was, at least from my perspective, I don't think you need to sleep to do it. I think we have this very 3D idea that we have to sleep to dream, and I don't think that's true. And in fact, when we're dying, we're not sleeping, right? We're still breathing, and we're still, like, honestly, we're very aware. We're able to hear conversations in the room. That's not true of you when you're sleeping. So for me, that's more in those upper waves, right? The higher frequency waves, the epsilon and the gamma and the hyper gamma. And so what's possible for us when we're awake that could be just as powerful, if not more powerful, than what we think we're getting when we do our dream work, right? And I really do think it's just because we've had this limited perspective, this limited human perspective, that like there's only two ways of being. You're either awake or you're asleep. And if you're awake, then you're focused. And if you're asleep, then you're not. And it's like, this is very black and white in a universe where there's a radical full spectrum of states of awareness. And the more we can become conscious to what those states of awareness are and understand their role. I'm just checking because I had sent myself another link, but I think I'm going to hold off on it for now. Once we become aware of those different states of consciousness and understand their role, then we can work with this. Then we can start to consciously activate these different states and realms of awareness. And that's where this all gets really interesting to me. And I want to believe, me personally, that it doesn't require plant medicine, because that alienates and excludes a lot of people who can't work with plant medicines and plant teachers for different reasons. So how do we do it? Through breath. Tibetan monks are not using plant medicine, they're using breath, right? They're using chanting, and they are meditating. They're learning how to train their minds to meditate, sometimes 6-8 hours a day. They're manipulating food intake, right? Most Tibetan monks eat very little food, because the more food you eat, the more anchored you are in your beta state of consciousness, right? So if you want to get to an elevated state of consciousness, it's through breath. You limit the caloric intake, you increase hydration, and that's how you start to manipulate some of these states of awareness. Then you can incorporate sound and chanting and mantra, right? Which, when you're working with Sanskrit, these are powerful words that have a lineage and a legacy that's beyond our comprehension. So anyway, we're going to play with all of this month. In session 3, my goal with session 3, I haven't fully designed session 3 yet, but session 3 is our meditation. And with your permission, I would like to do this with Elder Council this month too. I would like to play with trying to take you to the highest state of conscious awareness that I can, if you're open to it. I want to try to experiment with getting you to I probably can't get you to like hyper gamma, but I want to experiment with like, can I get you to epsilon above beta? Because what if I could get you to gamma, not hyper gamma, right? And not to lambda. Lambda is, you're not alive anymore. Your frequency is so high that it can't sit or rest in a human body anymore. So I'm going to play a little bit. Now, this would be the first time, by the way, where I might make some recommendations that I haven't made to you before. Like, if we're going to really try this, like, don't eat a ton that day. You know what I mean? Before the meditation. And try not to eat animal products. This I know for sure. And this is where, and you know me, I've always told you, I'm never going to be a vegan, because I really do like to have a steak every now and then, and God, I love a good cheeseburger, right? But I cannot have a really deep spiritual experience if there's animal products in my body, me personally. So before I do big journeys and stuff, no dairy, no meat, no, I don't even use, like, nothing. I go strict vegan before ayahuasca, before anything. I get all animal products out of my mind, out of my body. So, and I overhydrate, lots of herbal tea, lots of fresh fruit and vegetables, lots of smoothies, right? Just really putting as many nutrients into my body as I can, but absolutely zero animal products. And I'm saying that as a non-vegan. But animal products like dairy and meat prevent me from having a journey. So what I might do this time is just say, hey, 24 hours, let go of the animal products and caffeine. Just for 24 hours. Anything else you want to eat, great. Do your beans, that's what I do. I make a big soup. I do beans and lots of veggies, carrots and broccoli and celery and onion and everything in there, but I don't do animal products. Does that make sense? Yeah. And just lots of hydration, but no meat for 24 hours. And I guarantee you, after we're done, if we do it right, you won't want it for 24 hours. There's a moment after I'm done with spiritual journey with no plant and no animal products where I don't want them in my body either. So usually I'll go 24 to 48 hours again before I have a chicken breast or something like that. There's something about it. Yeah, caffeine, no alcohol, no caffeine. I would just say, like, no stimulants and no depressants. Does that make sense? Because I want to see what we can do without it. just have a little coffee or tea so you don't get a headache. I always have just like a quarter cup of coffee when I'm doing things like this, or a quarter cup of tea, but I don't have my whole cup of coffee. And then no alcohol, because that's a radical depressant. You don't want to go too high with caffeine, but you don't want to go too low with alcohol. So you want to kind of like regulate a little bit. No sugar, because again, that's a stimulant, right? So that's gonna put you in a weird state. Yeah, so it'll give you a good cleanse. There's a Dieta video from ayahuasca from me that we have somewhere. So if you want to see what a full Dieta looks like, you don't want to do that. That's hard. That's no orgasms. That's no kissing, no touching, no orgasms, no sugar, no salt, no garlic, no ginger, no meat products, no alcohol, no cannabis. Dieta is like, I only do that when I have to, because that's also 2 weeks. So that's not where I'm going with this. But I'm just thinking 24 hours before session 3. And if you want to do it 24 hours before Elder Council, I'm going to do it. Not the no orgasm part, but no animal products.
Thank you for clarifying that for us.
You can do whatever you want with your hands and your bits, but no caffeine. On ayahuasca Dieta, it will make you sick. Garlic and ginger will make you sick. My soup doesn't taste that good. It's not good. It's got no salt, no garlic, you're eating to eat. Aww. I swear I've had the whole energy drink myself. Okay.
I had some.
Oh, did you have some? Okay, that makes me feel better because there's a lot of caffeine in that.
You probably had about like 2/3.
You're wired tonight.
I've been trying to like give it to you a little bit at a time.
I appreciate it.
Kind of like a controlled IV drip.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she keeps me around, guys. I administer energy drink at an appropriate level.
She does. Okay, so anyway, the Dieta video is in your Facebook group if you want to watch that.
Yeah, Karen said she bumped
You don't need to go all out like that. The reason you do Dieta is because you don't get sick on ayahuasca. If you follow all the rules, you don't get sick. I just make a huge pot of vegetable soup. I eat a lot of hummus. It's mostly hummus. I still have usually an egg in the morning, a hard-boiled egg in the morning, because I like to start off with a lot of protein. And then I do smoothies. So it's very healthy. I usually lose a bunch of weight, my skin clears up, and then I go right back to my bad habits afterward.
Have you ever had, guys, Karen bumped the Dieta video and I just pinned it as an announcement in our feature tab. But have you ever had the chocolate hummus?
No.
So it's hummus. It's made with chickpeas and it's the consistency of hummus, but it's kind of sweet. It's not super sweet.
Yeah.
But it's made with like cocoa and cacao and stuff, and you can dip like bananas and stuff in it. It's really good, or even like on some toast. I was a big fan of that.
It reminds me kind of growing up in a Middle Eastern household. We eat halva. I don't know if you guys have had it, but it's my favorite dessert on the planet. Is only homemade halva. You can go to Ralph's or Kroger's or whatever and find halva. That's not what I'm talking about. But like homemade halva, which is made of chickpeas, is a dessert. Ooh. And the pistachio halva, but they have chocolate halva.
I love pistachio flavored stuff.
I will get homemade halva. Sometimes at farmers markets, you'll find Middle Eastern people who make halva. It's incredible. It's flaky, and the thing is, you can't eat too much of it. It's full of fat. It's just, you get a halva booty.
The chocolate hummus I tried was just at Target. Yeah. In the little refrigerator
I'm always down to try different things. I love hummus, and so when I'm on Dieta, I don't feel like I'm struggling too much. And I make myself homemade popsicles because I always want something sweet at night. It's just a bad habit of mine. So I make myself homemade juice popsicles, and I have those at night, which helps a lot too when I'm on Dieta. Okay, so let me go back to the questions. Yeah, if I do ayahuasca again, I don't have any plans to do it right now. But if and when I do it again, I will absolutely bring you in and talk Dieta with you and go through the whole thing with you. I usually do. And some people Dieta with me. They know I'm cleansing, and so they're like, I'm down. Gives them an excuse, and they know they're not alone. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's easier to fast and it's not even really a fast, but it's like it's easier to give up the things you love if you know your friend's doing it too, because you feel like you're kind of supporting them. So I usually bring you along for the ride when that's happening. Yeah, Janine said I'm a vegetarian, but I'm eating cheese now and I'm addicted to coffee. Would love to eat vegan for a couple of days. Yeah, and you know what? You can even, I mean, for me, I go 2 to 3 days a week with no animal products now. So no dairy, no chicken, no meat, and I do feel better. You know, it's just better for you. It's a better way to go. And all of this, by the way, relates to class because fried foods, acidic foods, alcohol, animal protein, has a negative impact on your psychic visions, right? And your pineal gland. It calcifies your pineal gland.
The journey Athena's talking about doing, I'm assuming, is session 3.
Yeah.
Which would be December 20th. They said they want to get ready with someone said they need a dark space. So December 20th is when she would be doing this.
Yeah, so like the 19th, I would, if you want to do it with me, which is nice, because then after that, for like Christmas Eve and stuff, you can just eat yourself into oblivion.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll have all the excuses, and you'll have lost a couple pounds probably. So it'll be like, I will have a second helping of those animal-covered mashed potatoes. Like extra turkey, giblet, gravy.
I love mashed potatoes.
I'm making Indian food for Christmas, which is very non-traditional. Yeah.
What's your dish? Like, what dishes are you making?
So I make really good homemade chicken tikka masala.
That's my favorite.
From scratch. It's really good. And I'm making basmati rice and homemade naan, garlic naan. And my brother's vegan, so I'm making aloo gobi for him, which is like a curried cauliflower and potato dish. And then he's going to make chana masala, which are like the chickpeas and like a really spicy curry. And then I'm going to try to make homemade, what's the Indian ice cream called? The kulfi, which is a pistachio, heavy cream pistachio and cardamom ice cream with little rose petals on it. That's my Christmas dinner.
That sounds amazing.
It's very, my mom would, wherever she is in the other dimension, she's like, really, for Christmas dinner? But we didn't do that when you were here, right? We kept it real traditional, so now we're going all crazy, Mom. Anyway. All right, let me see if we go back to the questions. Any idea what it means when you used to remember all your dreams and then suddenly you stop remembering any of them? It's, it's a great question, Stephanie. Because, my ear is to the ground in our community a lot. So even if I haven't had these experiences, I've heard people talk about these things for a long time. There's different thoughts on this. One thought is you're not supposed to remember them right now. A lot of healing work does happen in the other dimensional states of awareness, right? A lot of healing happens. Remember, kids grow when they're sleeping, right? It's one of the reasons why when people have newborns and they come to me and they're like, Athena, I'm not going to make it. Like, how do I get these fucking kids to sleep, right? And I remind them that give it a couple of years, you won't be able to wake them up, right? How many of you with like preteens know what that story is about? And even now as teenagers. Because as soon as kids are really in their growth spurts, all they want to do is sleep and eat and sleep and eat and sleep and eat because they're growing, right? So a lot of growth happens in dream time. A lot of healing happens in dream time. And just like in some journeys, you're like, oh, I want to remember every detail. I want to come back from the journey and take notes about my experience. And you come back and you're like, I fell asleep and I don't remember anything. Sometimes it's because they don't want you necessarily to remember. And you don't need to consciously be aware of it. Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's medication. A lot of people, myself included, like to work with cannabis for sleep. It's very good for insomnia. It actually prevents you in most cases from remembering your dreams. I'm not saying you're using cannabis, but like when I have worked with it, I'm not working with it now. But when I have worked with indica strains of cannabis for insomnia, I had great sleep, couldn't remember anything, and I didn't really enjoy that. So some medications will kind of knock you out of your ability to remember your dreams too. If you've always remembered them and all of a sudden you can't, a lot of times in my experience, that's an awareness thing. What the spirit world is probably working on something, and it's needing to bypass your conscious awareness for some reason. And that's always a good question to bring to Elder Council too, which I think Elder Council is next week, isn't it? Or is it this week?
It's not this week.
I think it's next week.
I believe it. Yeah, it's next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
December 15th.
Yeah, if you haven't done Elder Council, this is your first. What a cool time of year.
Yeah,
Right before Yule.
It's a lovely time. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And again, we're going to be trying to go really deep. So, and this is the time of year to go deep. You know, it's like when the world is darker and the energies are slower, and it's a nice time to experience a little more depth. So that's a great question to take into Elder Council too, is it's like, how come I could always remember them and then all of a sudden I can't now? Elsie, when we use the Claire gifts, get downloads, or outside linear time, what brain state is that? So there's different theories about this. Can I show you my shitty diagram again? So remember, this is waking, right? Like you are here. Most people say that everything you're talking about, Elsie, is happening down here. Getting the downloads, outside linear time. Most of that's happening. Alpha is when you're daydreaming, and theta is when you are in a really deep shamanic journey trance state. Like you're in pranayama and your hands aren't moving, right? Like that's theta. But like I said, for every move down, there's a corollary move up. And my theory tonight with you, Elsie, I don't know if I'm right, it could be wrong, is that you can also do the same thing, not necessarily through relaxation and deep meditation, but through vibration and manipulation of your frequency, get out of beta up to gamma and not lambda, because again, lambda is death and delta is you are passed out asleep. Neither of these are really where you want to be right now, right? So you're either dropping into a deep trance down here, or you're vibrating up to a deep trance. And this is where I think a lot of people have misunderstandings, this idea of hyper gamma. They say that hyper gamma is the death doorway, right? It's the gateway between being at such a high frequency that you are having these altered states of awareness to the point where you can't be on the planet anymore. And that's lambda. So that's just that's the theory I've been floating tonight for you guys. Yeah, well, one of the things that my friend Yasmina does that I really admire about her, she's mostly vegan. You should follow her on Instagram, because I always thought I was a good cook, but she really has made me a better cook, and she shares most of what she makes. She cooks almost all of her own food, and she kind of walks you through how she does it, and it's all natural and really whole foods. Like, she's taught me so much. Actively and passively has taught me a lot. But what she says is she only eats what she desires. So if she wakes up in the morning and she wants 5 grapefruit and nothing else the whole day, that's all she eats. Or if she wakes up in the morning and she wants chicken tamales, like, she'll find a way to get them. But she absolutely does not plan her food that far in advance. She shops at not Whole Foods, but the farmer's market. But then if she's craving something, like, she'll just go get it and eat it. And she's never had problems with her weight. So I think it's a really interesting concept of, like, following what your urges are, as opposed to, like, what you think you're supposed to be eating. So she's not like a meal prepper. I have friends who do meal prep where they're like, they get the little black containers off Amazon and every day they have 4 ounces of chicken. I couldn't do that. That just sounds so horrible and boring to me. But yeah, I'm supposed to be going to visit her soon. I'm hoping to go and visit her over the holiday break.
Oh,
I know, because she's only a couple of hours from me too. Yeah, Lala. So Lala's going to be traveling, and it sounds wonderful where you're going. But yeah, when you get back, or sometimes when you're traveling, it's hard to do these like fasts and protocols and stuff. So I think it's better to do it when you get back and you're in your zone. When you said the experiment with people at work can't talk but they can hear, are they telepathically telling each other? I think so. It's very 3D to think that I can only communicate with you by talking to you, isn't it? Yeah. And yet, I mean, we think of communication as being, I'm either going to write it down, or I'm going to say it, or I'm going to, what else, right? Draw it, draw a drawing. But we have to remember that we are all communicating with each other all the time. And that there's multiple states of conscious awareness at play. And that's what this whole year in Soul Shift has been about. I mean, hopefully this year has been a really deep dive on how incredibly complex the human central nervous system is, right? How we pick up information, how we sense it, how we receive it, how we internalize it, how we express it and communicate it, like how incredibly complex these channels are. And how to become intentional about cultivating the way you relate to people, right? And honoring the fact that it is complex, that it is beautiful. But yeah, I mentioned my mom's passing tonight, not to trigger anybody, but just as a point of saying, like, that was the first time I'd had that experience of, if you were to look at her, she was gone. I mean, and the machines were artificially pumping her heart, right? So it really opened this question for me for the first time in my life in such a direct way of, like, at what point is she gone? And it's a brainwave issue, right? I mean, are there still brainwaves, right? And what frequency are they at? Which tells me what part of her brain is active, which tells me how I can communicate with her, and tells me what not to expect from her in terms of, like, eye contact, right? It's a pretty remarkable experience that if you haven't had it, which you would also have it again if somebody has a stroke, like, they're not looking at you, but you know that they're consciously aware. And it's a reminder that hearing is the last human sense to shut down, followed by smell, right? So it's important to keep bringing scent and keep bringing sound, and because the person in that container can still smell and still hear. They just can't. The brainwaves are not operating in a way that they can communicate back, right? Fascinating, isn't it? Diane had the same experience with her hubby. Well, so, a lot of the alternative therapies for post-traumatic stress disorder, and one of the ones that I taught, which is called brain spotting, I taught that in my light and shadow retreat, and tapping, for example. These are the reason these alternative therapies work, and there are plenty of people who are skeptical about them, but the reason I think they work, and again, this is me, I'm not a trained psychotherapist, but I've done these therapies before, and I've read about them and taught them to people before. They are primal sort of activators of these deeper parts of the brain that bypass language. So when you're tapping, or when you're brain spotting, right, when you're training people to pay attention to where their gaze goes when they're not focused, right, when they're in one of these deeper states of conscious awareness, so it's all related to what we're talking about tonight, it allows you to bypass the conscious mind, which wants to override the conversation anyway, right? The conscious mind is always like, no, I'm fine. No, I know what happened to me when I was 5. No, that's all there is to it. We don't have to talk about this anymore. Like, the conscious mind doesn't even want to do that work. So you have to get past the conscious mind to the subconscious, which is holding all of those memories, in the hippocampus, which is part of the limbic system. That's the memory regulator part of the brain. So tapping, right, and brain spotting activate the hippocampus. So they activate this deeper part of the mammalian brain, as they call it. And this is why I posted I was reading last weekend, I was up late at night reading about the triune brain, right, which is the modern brain, the mammalian brain, and the reptilian brain. It's your thinking brain, which honestly is, like, not even the most interesting part of your brain, but it's the one that leads the conversation. And then it's your mammalian brain, which is your emotions and your memories, but doesn't have any capacity to speak. And then there's the reptilian brain, which is like, I'm in danger, get me the fuck out of here. Right? Like, it's just it's constantly looking for problems. Those three brains are all you. So there's a part of you that's, like, constantly scanning for problems. There's another part of you that's, like, living in your memories and your feelings and gets lost there. And then there's a third part of your brain that's like, what is all this about anyway? I'm not enjoying this. This isn't fun, right? So it's like, it's all to say that these interesting advancements in therapy, like tapping and EMDR and brain spotting and all these things that you might hear if you are in the therapeutic world, are really designed to access that secondary part of that brain, that mammalian brain, that older brain, that can't speak. It doesn't have capacity for language. That's more modern, but it feels everything and it remembers everything that's happened to you. And that's where a lot of trauma lives, right? So mushrooms and some of these psychedelic medicines like ketamine activate and help to heal and repair some of the neural connections in the hippocampus and in the limbic system in ways that modern pharmaceuticals do not. And so they lead us into these interesting doorways and conversations about what's possible for cognitive, but also for physical and also for neurogeneration, right? For building new neural pathways and healing people who've had brain damage and things like that, like starting to put synapses back together. And it's a fascinating world that we live in. But I also think it's kind of threatening to an industry that kind of is based on more traditional means too. So I think there's always going to be this tension between, do we want to find new pathways and new medicines and new treatment forms, or do we want to stay with what we've been doing that sometimes works but sometimes doesn't? And there's some new studies coming out too in the world of neurology. Again, this is not necessarily my area of expertise, but I do a lot of research about kind of whether and to what extent serotonin is really involved in depression, right? Which calls into question a lot of the medications that we take. So I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but so Elsie's asking, do you think that humans should naturally be in gamma if we used more of our brain? Kind of, I do. And I think that this whole theory of like, we don't use most of our brain. You know that, right? Like everybody's told you that probably since you were little, and it's true. We know it scientifically. We don't use all of our brain all the time. So if we used more of our neural capacity, what would we be able to think about or process or cultivate or develop or expand? You know what I mean? And this idea of neuroplasticity is that our brains can actually still grow and expand as we get older. A lot of us think like we get to a certain age and it kind of stops and then it rewinds, right? And then only young people can learn new things. And we have this whole theory of like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks and all these things, but it's really not true. But as we get older, how many of you have had this experience where it's like, it's harder, right? Learning a new language is harder because that's opening all kinds of neural pathways, and it's forcing an expansion of your language and your frame of mind and your schema and what it is forcing you to expand. But a lot of older people who are very sharp into their older years are consciously doing exercises to maintain their neuroplasticity because they recognize that staying sharp is really about maintaining and building new neural connections in the brain. Yeah, well, I mean, Kate, it has, right? But we still have people who believe that we can't experience neuroplasticity. There's still people who believe that, and they're welcome to believe it. But in the world of neurology, we know that there's really no end. It's really about, are you still cultivating and expanding and opening the top of your funnel, you know what I mean, to experience new things and build new connections. So interesting. T says, New Calm is a great tool to put you into a parasympathetic state and being in theta. I would like to know more about that. So you are welcome to tell me more about that. Karen, she said, is Pacific Grad Institute calling you? Yeah, I just think if I told Dave I was going back to graduate school that he would be really scared of that. I don't know. My time is so limited. That's the only thing that inhibits me from going back to school. I probably will at some point when I retire, though, because I still feel like I want to take some classes. But I just don't know where I would fit that in. I'm real good at writing papers, though. Brain games, I know, it's exciting, right? Yeah, they're having the virtual experience. They are, that particular program is very interesting to me. I find it fascinating. So, is the astral body considered your soul? I think so. I see you, Bonnie. I think so, right? I mean, I've seen 100 different diagrams, and I'm sure you have too, where it's like, again, here's another shitty diagram for you. I'll draw you my own shitty version of it.
I love your shitty diagrams.
They're so great and shitty. Look how shitty. There's you, and then it's like a boop and a boop, and it just keeps showing you these like layers around you. I think this is somebody's attempt, God bless them, right, to actually show you what's called the toroidal field. So what I understand to be true is that you are here, and there's actually there's a donut of energy around you. So a 3D version looks like what I just showed you, like you're in a hall of mirrors or something. But I think I think there's a donut of energy that's around you, and that's your astral field. And there's a sound that it makes, and there's a motion that it makes, and it looks like a donut. It's called the tube torus. And that field is constantly spinning, and it runs right through your central channel. So all of your chakras are in that toroidal field, and that is it. No, I'm not putting myself down, but my artistic skills are very limited.
Jessica Hicks would like to know if you suggest a mantra or prayer to say before sleep to help the dream state and for healing.
Let me think about that. And I will get back to you. I want to feel into that.
I would suggest even just for the dream state, not specifically for healing, because I do think those are two different things. And you can work on healing work in your dream state, but as far as a mantra goes, I think the mantra would be different. Yeah. But if you're looking for a simple mantra to do before going to sleep, I would recommend either doing the crown chakra seed, or actually the crown chakra seed mantra and the third eye are the same.
They're Om.
So Om. I would honestly just recommend doing Om.
Yeah, you can do Oming. And that's one of the reasons why people do Oming. Mm-hmm. I think Om Mani Padme Hum is a good one because it's actually every mantra that the Buddha ever said in one mantra. It translates to the lotus is the jewel or something like that, but it's technically what it is. I have it over the doorway, the entrance to my house, because it's a blessing, right? So we had them in the shop, but I just kept one. We haven't had them in a long time, but it's brass and it's in Sanskrit and it says Om Mani Padme Hum. So that's a good one. But if you can't remember all of that, just Om. That's why Oming is so critical. I think that's beautiful that we were both kind of on the same.
Right, yeah, and it does activate those two, like the crown and the third eye chakras, which I think in this particular, if we're actually talking like dreaming, or if you're talking about going to sleep, or just enhancing your intuition, or your connection to spirit, I think the Om is it's the simplest, and also I would say the most profound one that you can work with.
I almost said to her, we're on the same wavelength. No, but that's exactly what we're talking about tonight.
And we actually really were too.
But that is literally what it means to be on the same wavelength, is that we're on the same frequency.
Yeah. I love a good pun that's also deeply meaningful.
Any reflections around nightmares?
Ooh.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is I don't have them very often, and I've never had a night terror, but people close to me have. Very active lucid ones. And what I always tell people is, if that happens to you or is happening to you, it's really important to set up your bedroom and some nighttime rituals to protect your field. You know, it's when we are in these outer states of awareness, remember that the universe is vast and it has polarity, right? I mean, I never spend too much time talking about some of these things because I really am not in the business of scaring people. And I've mentioned this before, like, I do think there are people out there who kind of build their businesses on like scary things or like toxic stones and things, because it's like, it gets people's attention, but I don't think it's worthwhile to scare people for no reason. But at the same time, I also think it's important to remind people that there is, at least in my experience, there is absolute light and absolute absence of light in the universe. And there is, I have seen some very abject evil, and I think it's important this is one of the reasons that I just allow spirit guides to have what I call PAM protection for me, which is just a constant sort of field of protection around me. And I also think it's important to keep your own personal vibration high. And a lot of the things that we've talked about tonight help with that. But like, my bedroom is gridded. I've got my chumpy stones under my bed. There's just a lot of things that I have in place to make it a safe space. And I haven't dusted my Chumpy Stones in a long time, and I changed the height of my bed frame recently. And so I looked under the bed, and my Chumpies had like dust, like there's like little rings of dust around them, and the exact shape of them. I'm like, oh, this is how you know you've had your Chumpies for a long time. So Archangel Michael is beautiful to call in. I personally adore calling in Archangel Michael. The shaman that I do ayahuasca with, before we do ayahuasca, it's a beautiful prayer. I'll just share it with you because I love it when he does it. He always asks Archangel Michael to put a pillar of light, of white light, over my home. And whenever he does that prayer with me, I always envision it, just a huge pillar, almost like an obelisk of white light over my house. And you can do the same thing over your bedroom. Ask Archangel Michael to put a pillar of white light over your bedroom that encompasses your bed and your whole sleeping area. I mean, if that doesn't make you feel more relaxed and comfortable, Violet Flame's another one, right? Is beautiful too. So, yeah, if your Chumpies are out of your bed, it's probably good to dust. I just really was like...
Katrina McNulty just said something that sparked an old...
Can I have a little bit more?
It's gone, but I can grab one for you. Let me just say this and then I can grab it. But it sparked a memory where she said, I have a recipe somewhere for Monster Away spray that helps with nightmares with kids. Didn't we used to have one? And it had like some shit
and it had like
it came with some crystals.
There was like a weird little monster on the label, wasn't
there? Yeah, there were like some googly looking eyes or something. You just you sparked like a core Sage Goddess memory. That would be cute to kind of bring back, or to do like
to put legit stuff in there to help with sleep, like
do and like a grown up sleep spray or something. I love like the pillow mists. I'm a big fan of spraying my pillow before I go to bed and everything, so I would love something like that. Garen, can you write that down for us? I'm gonna go get. You want another energy drink?
No, would you just give me some Coke Zero?
Sure.
Thank you. We drank a whole huge can of Bang. We'll do something like that. But I love valerian. I do. I really love valerian. I do think melatonin is great if you are, it's much better than a lot of the prescription medications because your body naturally produces melatonin. You don't need very much. So, always look at the dosing. I always take the smallest amount of anything because it doesn't take much to get me moving with anything. Yeah, I love the smell and taste of valerian. It is an acquired taste. So you might smell it and go, oh, I think it smells like feet. And some people really don't like it. And I understand. I like it. So
I can't do valerian. It's where I draw the line.
Like it. Yeah.
Do you want to take this last sip before I... Or actually, there's a clean one over here that
watermelon, cherry, Diet Coke.
Watermelon, cherry, Diet Coke?
I don't know.
I do love a good cherry Coke.
I do. I got cherry Coke Zero the other day, and it was really, really good. It was really good. Yeah. They're like pink instead of red. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay. Now I'm moving on to Diet Coke.
I love that we just always share our beverages.
We do.
It's something about us that always makes me smile.
We tend to like the same things. So how can you induce lucid dreaming? Okay, so let's talk about this. And let's talk about, we've been talking a lot tonight, I think, about some practical things you can do and things not to do, right? So reducing caffeine, obviously, we're blowing it right now, but, you might want to have a caffeine-free beverage before. I would say if you're really trying to have some lucid dreaming, after 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I would really limit caffeine. And you also really want to limit alcohol because alcohol may help you feel like you're going to get some rest, but it actually can cause you to wake back up in the middle of the night. A lot of people don't know that. It's a depressant, but it has this like reverberation or this rebound effect that isn't helpful. Honestly, alcohol doesn't help anything. I still like it, but it doesn't help anything.
I still enjoy it, but yeah.
I still drink it. It's like egg rolls. They're not helping anything, but I like them.
I've noticed recently that I think alcohol is, I think it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Like magnifying or making my anxiety worse.
Yeah.
Like not during the drinking, obviously, because it kind of releases your inhibitions.
But after it does.
Yeah, like the next day, I've noticed. It's
not good.
that
It's
I've
not good.
noticed. Yeah. I mean, if you drink a little bit too much anyway, if you have like one drink, I won't. But that's just something I've noticed about myself because I've been on a mission to manage my anxiety, and now that it's gotten a little bit like more managed, I'm noticing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't. Everybody thinks it helps, but it really doesn't. It's better to find some alternatives. So those are some things you can do to sort of prepare your body for deeper rest. There are some herbs you can work with too. Mugwort's really good. Mugwort, blue lotus. You can take those as tea, before bedtime too, which is good. They're not going to interrupt your sleep cycles. A lot of people associate taking mugwort or blue lotus with dropping into, theta state. If not theta, at least a really nice deep alpha. And then I think it's partly about your intention too. There are some stones too, and we'll talk more about this next week in Crystal Masters, because I do think that the multidimensional stones and the tektites, like the moldavites and the Libyan golds and the Columbianites and the ognimonitite, and for me, apophyllite is another one that I really feel is kind of critical to the process too. So there are crystals that you can work with as well that are very helpful for inducing lucid dreaming. And then I think it's about the intention and calling in your spirit guides. When you really want to have an experience, I mean, for a lot of us, we lucid dream and then we realize it afterward. So it wasn't intentional. It was like, oh gosh, that was really, like, I was aware that I was dreaming. That's so crazy. But you can also set the intention to have that happen too, and actually make ceremony of it, right? So opening a circle before you go to sleep so that you're held in that space. And then like I say, having chumpies around my bed, I also think is sort of like a multidimensional beacon to the spirit world. I'm ready to go, right? And then recognizing too that depending on how you take in information psychically, whether you're clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, clairalient, like all of these things come into play because the experiences you might have in dream time might be different than mine based on what your psychic gifts are and how it is that you channel or intuit information. So I think a lot of the things we've been talking about tonight, that not eating too many animal products and trying to regulate what you're eating and drinking, and then preparing your body and bringing in the right crystals and then setting the intention, and then sound, right? So a lot of people work with, what I played for you earlier was what's called, it's a version of a binaural beat, which are two different competing beats that you play at the same time that impact the brain waves, right? So it's like consciously manipulating the brain waves, which can be done through sound. Some people think through crystal therapy you can, modulate the brainwaves too. Remember that each one of your crystals, and you'll learn more about this when my book comes out this year, but each one of your crystals has a dominant oscillatory or oscillatory rate, a DOR, and so they regulate. So some of the crystals raise your frequency, getting you out of, beta into the higher epsilon and into the gamma, we think, and then some of them lower the frequency, so taking you out of beta into alpha and into theta and then down to delta. So hopefully that's kind of some, I know it's quick information, but kind of an overview of some things you can do to be more intentional about having those experiences. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Elsie said the black hole sound earlier that you were listening to said Om.
Oh. That's interesting.
Well, and Stacy, I'm interested in your comment because, so Stacy Garwood said maybe lucid journey is a better term than lucid dreaming. And here's why I think that's so accurate. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Because I think we think of lucid dreaming as something that can only happen between 11 p.m. and 6 in the morning when you are in bed. And I don't think that we are time bound like that. I think that sleep is a way of, not only is it about our diurnal clock and like, when the sun goes down, your body starts to produce melatonin. That's why you get tired, right? Like these things naturally happen. These are biological processes, and we're conditioned, and we're in these human bodies that require rest, right, to function and to heal when we're sick. But my own personal experience has been that my most profound spiritual experiences have not been when I'm asleep. me personally. Now, some people would say that that's not the same for them, that they've had more profound experiences asleep than they have awake. And I'd be curious to know how you guys feel about that, positive or negative. But my most profound spiritual experiences have been somewhat lucid. And so I wouldn't call them lucid dreaming. I would call them lucid journeys or lucid explorations or lucid, experiences as opposed to lucid dreaming. Unless we want to redefine dreaming, which I'm curious about that too. But it's fascinating to me because if you start researching astral travel and astral projection and lucid dreaming online, me personally, I have not found anybody having the conversation that you and I are having right now. It's all been about like getting in bed and then looking at the ceiling, and it all presupposes that you're in bed. And I just think, I don't know, I think we have to kind of get outside of that box.
Get out of the bed.
Get out of the bed. Get out of my dreams. Get into my car. My sister and I used to like that song, Billy Ocean. I would love to come hug you. Yes. When I come to see Yasmina, I will pull over on the 62 and hug you daily. I will. It's a fun drive out to the desert. Yeah, lucidity, right? There's something special about it. I've had some interesting experiences while I've been asleep, but they have not compared to my experiences being pretty much as awake as I am with you right now.
Yeah. Well, Lauren has asked an interesting question that I wonder too.
Yeah.
What do you think about those dreams that make you basically twitch awake? Do you have any thoughts on that? Because that happens to me frequently.
I've had them. Where you feel like you're falling on your bed.
Yeah.
And you aren't.
You wake up and scare your cat.
Yeah.
Your cat turns his
or your
butt
partner
toward you because he's mad at you.
Yeah. Smudgy doesn't care. He's so we call it bouldering. Like once he's down, he's not moving.
Oh,
like
really?
I could literally push him across the bed, and he's just not. He's not moving.
Felix moves with me because I'm a mover. You're a mover. He likes to be right next to my face.
Yeah.
So I'm a side sleeper. So if I turn to the other side, he'll crawl over me to get back to my face.
That's very nice.
He doesn't want my back to him. But if he's mad at me, he puts his butt.
If you twitch away.
Anyway, twitch away.
Yeah. No. Well, so. Yeah, it from my perspective, those twitching awake dreams are it's timeline. Like you are literally traveling and coming back into your body sometimes is like you leave skid marks. Seriously. You have gone somewhere else and now you're back. There's a re-entry.
It's like an airplane landing.
I've had those dreams, but what freaks me out even more are the ones where I'm on the ceiling and I'm like walking on the ceiling and I'm upside down and I'm looking down and there's people on the what I know to be the ground and they're right side up, so I'm looking at them like that and I'm moving. I mean that those dreams are more, and I'm aware of it. Those are the ones that freak me out when that happens. I don't know if anybody's ever had that experience either, but yeah. Christina says, I have a lot of rose quartz by my bed. Is that bad for deep dreaming? I don't think so. For me, rose quartz, lithium quartz, amethyst, which are all quartz-based minerals, but they're a little softer, are okay. I don't have a ring of quartz points around my bed. I'm not trying to do that right now. I don't have a bunch of carnelian in there, you know what I mean? But I don't think it's bad to have rose quartz around. But, what I always tell people is experiment. Take it out for a night and see what your dream time experience is like and if it's different or if it's deeper. You know what I mean? Laura says, I don't land, I splat. It's like, right? It always feels like you're falling. But remember, you're not, right? You're falling through these, it's sort of like being in hyperspace, right? There's so much we don't know and understand, and it's so crazy to me. And I often think about like, being on the spirit side eventually, and then having to watch humans having these conversations, and just being like, no, but that's not how it works, you know, and like they can't tell us, but I often think about it, right? Oh, interesting. Janine said she's had the ceiling dream, but the ceiling had pillows on it. Interesting. So there was no gravity. Yeah, but I mean, again, like we don't have gravity because there's no space and time outside of third dimension. So it's like there is no gravity.
Vanya said I have clear quartz around me and it doesn't stop me from traveling in dreams.
Huh.
That's believable.
Well, and especially if you have intentionally or unintentionally programmed that quartz, which knowing you have done one of those two things.
Knowing you.
Right? Knowing you. I mean, it's like, no, but we're Vanya's quartz. You know what I mean? We're going downtown to Funky Town. So, yeah, dreams of flying. Zoe has dreams of flying all the time. All the time. She'll say, oh my God, I was flying and it was so amazing. Like, all the time. And when she was little, she used to talk about it all the time. Constantly flying in her dreams. So, let's see. Yeah, no worries. Remote view when asleep only. Yeah, remote viewing. Well, that's like dream walking. Some of the things we talk about too, have you noticed, at least for me, I think a lot of us, not even just you and me, but like in the metaphysical world, we're talking about the same thing, but we're using different language. So it's like we talk about remote viewing, and then I'm like, well, I think that's the same thing as me dream walking, right? Like I can see things that I can't see in my waking state with my human eyes, but I can move into other places or other spaces. Yeah. I haven't had this experience directly, but I have heard of people doing that with some, ill will, kind of like intentionally dream walking into other people's like spaces, I haven't had that experience myself, but I've had clients who've had those experiences before. Desiree's like, what do you do about getting stuck in that dream state and being unable to wake up? I've had a lot of clients in that position too, where they'll say, oh my God, I'm awake, but I can't move. You know what I mean? Or like I'm in that dream, but I can't get back. And I think it's just the re-entry into our dimension can be a little rocky sometimes. And I've had a lot of clients in that have that experience before. But my 2 cents on all of this is I don't think you should ever feel unsafe in your Dreamtime experiences. If you are feeling unsafe in your Dreamtime experiences, it's time to ramp the protection. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have a lot of things in my space that I sleep with a Bible in my bedroom. I have the Chumpies under my bed. Like, there's a lot of things. My grandmother taught me very young. You should always, you don't have to, but for me, always sleep with a Bible. She always said I had to be open. Mine is not, but it is in my room at all times. And there's a Bible in my crystal room, and I have a Bible here at the shop. Like, some things, when your grandmother's a minister, stay with you. But I don't feel unsafe in my sleep state. I actually don't look forward to sleep. What I look forward to, one of my favorite times of day, I don't want to say it's my favorite because that sounds really weird, but one of my favorite things in the world is that little bit of space before I fall asleep. Mm. And I try to use that space really consciously. I do not wait to get in bed until I'm exhausted, because I really want that 15 or 20 minutes. I find that space, I solve problems in that space, I relax in that space, I set intentions in that space, I send love to people who need it in that space. I feel like I receive a lot in that space. So I really try to juice that like a ripe fruit. And the same in the morning, you know what I mean? Like before getting out of bed, I try not to jump out of bed. I try to, that's not always the case, right? Especially on like, my son has certain days of the week that he has to be at school super early. So a lot of times like we're leaving at 6:55 in the morning. I'm out of bed at 6:45. That's not a really like juicy moment. But on the days when I can have a little bit of buffer around that time, I really like it. What's a Chumpy? So Chumpy, it's spelled Chumpi. I don't know if we have any on the website right now. We get them in every so often. Chumpies are these. I don't think I have a set in here.
We used to have one when we had the massage table. No, we don't have any in stock, are they?
We might check with Narrowly because he's constantly trying to get them from Peru. I don't know. We might have them on, like out of stock, but in the warehouse. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any in a while. But anyway, they're these. They're usually in sets of 7, and they're hand carved out of alabaster, and they represent these 7 mountains around Cusco, Peru, called the Apu, or the grandfather spirits. And there are 7 of them, and each one of them carries a different blessing. So the 7 of them, wherever you put the 7, hold the energy of those 7 Apu spirits. So, and they're in Peru, they're carved one set at a time in a trance state by shamans. So they're just kind of holy and sacred little pieces of alabaster that are carved. Yeah, I usually try to let Soul Shift know. Or Next Year Living Magic when we have them in stock, because we only ever get like 24 sets or 36 sets. It's not.
I sent him a message, so we'll see. I wonder what we're gonna call the people next year. Because we call soul shifters.
We're gonna call them magicians and pediatricians.
Living magicians.
You guys are the
soul pediatricians.
magic family. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so Angela's saying my eldest has sleep paralysis. What does this mean? I'm an active dreamer. Yeah, so that my experience, Angela, is that sleep. Your chair is going crazy.
I know. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Yours isn't squeaky.
No.
And we got them at the same time.
I know. I think the leg might be loose on it because I was sat on it yesterday and I was noticing the same thing.
It sounds like a guinea pig. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's not your fault. I don't know what the fuck's happening with it. Don't not move now because it's squeaky.
I'm scared.
Rachel, we need you to look at this chair. No, but it's so sleep paralysis is the thing I was talking about earlier, right? Where like you feel like you can't wake up or you can't move, and it is quite scary. Again, I've never had that direct experience, but I know people who have. I don't think it's necessarily anything bad or evil. I think it's just, remember, in these altered states of consciousness, it's very hard to be in your physical body, right? When your brain waves are operating at those other frequencies, it's hard to move at the same time in your physical body. And if you have left your body, if you have astrally projected, and you might say, well, how do you do that and stay alive? I don't make the rules here. I'm just telling you, people do astrally project. So they like leave their body and come back into their body, and that's where that like boom feeling happens of like falling on the bed or not being able to move because you feel paralyzed. Remember, doing breath work at times, you can have an experience very similar to that. We call it lobster claw. Like when you're in deep pranayama, my hands go like this and I can't move them for like 5 minutes. Like it's like my fingers are stuck together, and that's just from breathing. And my feet do the same thing, and then eventually everything starts to soften, but it's like there's this moment of feeling like you can't move, but it's just because the frequency is so intense that I think your body can't keep up with it, basically. Yeah.
It's going to be a few months before we have Chumpy stones.
Oh, really?
They're working on it, but it's a long process, as you know.
Each set takes 1 to 2 weeks. That's why it's such a process. But I'll tell you something. If they started banging them out by machine, I wouldn't want them anymore. I'm totally serious. I've always said I hope the day never comes where there's machine-made chumpies. I don't want any part of that. So if you see them being mass-produced, like, that's not what chumpies are about, right? Yeah, like screaming or trying to scream where you can't scream, right? It's a great question from Rhonda Reeves too. Is there a specific house placement or cusp placement that's more predisposed? I think probably the water signs. in my experience, are more predisposed. It could be my earth placement there may be why I'm so stodgy and boring.
You're not boring.
I don't really project. I do dream walk, though. I do. I definitely know that, like, I've had people call me into their dreams and I know I can go. And that is kind of fun, especially if you do it intentionally. Like, hey, come see me in dream time tonight. Okay, I'll come see you. And it's like, and then we see each other. Have you ever had that experience before? It's kind of fun. Both people have to really believe that it's possible and set the intention and do a little ceremonial work around it. But it's like, you know, if you're missing somebody and they're far away, that can be kind of fun too. I haven't done that since I was young, but I remember doing it with one of my friends, and we used to do it all the time. Like, I'll see you tonight. And it was like, so what did you see? And we would talk about it. And yeah, I used to do ceremony with her when I was in later years of high school and early years of college. Yeah, and your bedroom should be a sacred space. And your bedroom, and I know it's hard. Like, I co-slept with my kids forever. Half the time I still do. I still wake up all the time with one or both of them there. Not so much Nick, who's like a huge dude, but like Zoe, I'll wake up and I'm like, you know, I can't move, and it's not because I'm actually traveling. It's because I've got a 13-year-old laying there, in her roller coaster position, right? But so there was a long time when my kids were little where I couldn't really, like, I had a co-sleeper and all these things and like baby bottles. It was hard to make it into a sacred space. But if you can, even just have a small altar in your bedroom or on the windowsill in your bedroom or something, you know what I mean? Like, just something that says to you, like, this is my space and this is where I rest and this is where I shut everything else off at the end of the day. I do think it's nice to have some kind of candle in your bedroom. I don't do big candles in my bedroom. I only do tea lights. And that way I don't have to worry about blowing it out. I know that's weird, but like...
It makes sense.
Yeah, I only light tea lights in my bedroom so that I don't have to, like... If I'm really tired and I'm in that liminal space and I fall asleep, I don't have to worry about it.
You know it'll burn out.
I know it'll burn out, yeah. I like that. Yeah, fantasizing about... I mean, going to sleep in a... And it goes back to the questions about, like, how do you, you know, become intentional about this? I think that liminal space is really important, and using that space to fantasize about where you want to live or what kind of relationship you want to have or what kind of work you want to be doing or, you know, the things that you want to attract. My best advice is don't ever use that space for anything that isn't positive, because you are imprinting on the subconscious. And it isn't like your dreams are only the things that you thought about right before you went to bed, but don't you think it plays into it? I mean, I definitely think that there is some aspect of our dreamtime experiences that reflects something from the day. I mean, how many times have you gotten a phone call from somebody out of the, you know, so weird, like, well, that person called, and then you'll dream about them that night.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? There is some imprinting, and it may not be that it's the same exact person, but they look like them or whatever. So I think using that space to become a really conscious co-creator of your dreamtime experiences is very important. I'm so glad you were here live, Beth Bruno. That's really cool. Lynn Silva said, I started watching Mystic Pop-Up Bar on Netflix about a shaman that goes into people's dreams to fix grudges. It's a cool show. It sounds really cool.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I there was a shaman, I don't work with him anymore, but there was a shaman that I had gone to a couple of things with, and there were just people saying that, like, if to watch out, because if you did a lot of ceremonies with him, that he would do that, and it wasn't always a positive experience for them. And that kind of, I don't know, I didn't like that. So, but, you know, I mean, as I said earlier, there are people who do their work with positive intentions and people who don't, and I think it's good just to be discerning in your practice, right? Yeah, so, and you don't have to, like, when I talk to you about, like, Bibles and crucifixes and things like that, adapt that, right, for your faith tradition. I'm not the kind of person who says that's what you have to do. There are symbols of protection in every faith tradition. Right, in Islam, a lot of times it's the Hamza hand, right? So they wouldn't put necessarily a cross in their bedroom, but they would have a Hamza. So I think it's about looking to the symbols in your, if you're from the Celtic tradition, maybe it's the, the triple knot, or, the Celtic, what do they call it? The Celtic bridge or whatever. So I think it's just about figuring out what kinds of protective shapes or symbols from your tradition, or like the chumpy stones, for me, which come from the Q'ero shamanism tradition in the Andean shamanism of Peru, resonates with me, because I do think that those mountains are very protective, right? And light language and speaking in tongues, which is the same thing, is channeling that high frequency language that isn't from this planet, right? And some people wake up speaking, light language out of dreams, or they'll remember light languages from dreams, or they'll be shown symbols, and then they'll wake up and they'll try to write down the symbols and translate them too. So yeah, the Celtic cross is beautiful, and it is very protective. My aunt lived in England for most of her life, my dad's sister, until she died. In fact, right before she died, she moved back to Crete. But that was one of my favorite gifts from her. She felt more connected to a lot of the Celtic traditions even than our own traditions, and so she gave me a Celtic tree of life. It's sterling silver, but it's a little bookmark, and it's one of my treasures, So yeah, whatever works from whatever symbol, I think, is, if it resonates with you, it's right for you, So make your bedroom soft, and make your bedroom a sanctuary in whatever way that you can. Talking in your sleep is funny. Zoe tells whole stories. Like whole stories. I always tell her, you're going to have to be very careful one day, because you are just like narrating reality in detail. And half the time it does make sense. Like she's having a whole conversation with somebody, and I'm just listening, like I'm eavesdropping on it. So yeah, Lauren was saying her husband talks in his sleep a lot. It must be like a water sign thing, maybe. You guys like have so much emotion to process that you have to talk it out at night, which I think is interesting, right? What about having people, Moni says, visit you that you never met before, that you'd only heard of? That would scare me. I don't know. I don't know. I don't find that scary, but I'm very extroverted in that way. Like, I'm like, who am I going to see later or whatever? I don't shy away from that. And sometimes, when I first started doing Elder Council, I was really surprised by how many hybrid beings I saw. Like half crow, half human, or half, cat, half human, or half cat, half crow, or whatever. But then, going back into the Egyptian pantheon, a lot of the Egyptian gods and goddesses, Sekhmet, for example, or Thoth, are hybrid, right? And the Sphinx, right, is hybrid. So I believe that a lot of the Atlantean life forms were hybrid. Half this, half that. So I got used to seeing those things in dreams and in Elder Council, because I started to realize it's probably an Atlantean thing, right? Yeah, Evil Eye is great. We made them, remember? We crafted them.
Yeah, that was
pretty.
in August, I believe.
That'd be great to have in your bedroom.
I have mine hanging up. Yeah, I mean, I live in a studio apartment, so it's all kind of, but I have mine hanging up, like, between my room and my, like, the entryway to my kitchen.
That's a good
And
place
then, in, like, my actual room area, I have the Hamsa hand hanging. Yeah.
I have my Evil Eye next to my spirit weaving.
Aww.
Because I think of that as, like, a protective amulet, too,
Yeah,
kind of. And it's one of my favorite crafts that we've done.
That one was really cool.
Let's see. Angela says, I held my grandfather's hand and talked to him while he was dying. I had no idea. I was there until he kicked me out. Was it possible he heard me? He absolutely heard you. You kidding? No, but I mean, how cool, right? I'm glad that you're here and you're hearing this, because I'm sure he heard every word. That's why, my mom died when they were still going through COVID protocols in the hospital, and I was freaking the F out, because I was trying to get my kids up, and they would only let one visitor up at a time. So I had to go up, and then I had to go and get Nick and bring him up and bring him back, and then go and get Zoe and bring her up and bring her back, and then I had to go and get my dad and bring him up, and we were running out of time. And they made us re-register. Every time I came back down, I had to go back through registration again to like get another badge, and it was just like, listen, you guys, like I don't have time. You just saw me. Like, can I just get my daughter up there? But I knew it was important for her to hear everybody's voices and for everybody to say goodbye. So I absolutely believe it. But, you know, the nurses were also reinforcing, like, keep talking, she can hear you, keep talking, you know. And I don't know, I find comfort in that, right? So, well, you know, the blue room, Cindy's talking about, wanting to call in the spirit of the person who was the drunk driver that killed her brother. And I don't know, right and wrong for me isn't to decide, but that sounds like a blue room situation. Oh, Angela, if you were here, I'd just wrap my little arms around you, hug you so tight. That sounds like a blue room situation to me, though, you know, where you can call in the higher self, and you call in your higher self, and you let the higher selves have the conversation. The reason I like the blue room so much, and if you're not sure what the blue room is, we can update you, and there's a video. And
it's pinned in the feature.
It's pinned in the
Facebook group
you
already.
can go and listen to that meditation. It's one of my community's favorite meditations I've done for you. But what's interesting, so what you basically do is you call in your higher self to the blue room, and you call in the higher self of anybody that you are having a conflict with, and you stay out of it. You just ask the higher selves to get together to resolve the conflict for the highest good of all, and you back up and let it be. And it's a pretty profound meditation, and in my experience it works because you aren't trying to control the outcome. You have to completely let go of the outcome and not care what happens. Just trust that it's for the highest good. And not every higher self says yes, but that's been very limited in my experience. But it also, you're not interrupting free will. You know what I mean? So in my experience, it's a very powerful journey, and I do it quite often. And it's amazing, haven't you guys experienced this? How much changes in the third dimension after blue room.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't believe, it's like, wow, that resolved itself. And I didn't do anything. I just gave it to the higher selves and said, figure this out. This is beyond my pay grade. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to solve this problem in 3D, so y'all need to figure it out, right? Do the blue room and then let it go. You know, people say let go and let God. I say let go and blue room.
So I just got this information just now, but I thought you guys would be happy to know that all December Soul Shift tools have officially shipped out.
Yay!
So you will be getting them in time. I mean, before, but you'll definitely be getting them in time for session 3.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so good to go there. That's very
Yay.
exciting. And then, not to cut our time short, we still have to go till 6, obviously, but the team is waiting for us to go over those samples. So just
Yeah, but I don't want to limit class time.
Oh, no, of course not. No, I'm just letting you know.
Okay. Okay, so let me go back in the feed and see if there's anything else. Don't feel bad. I mean, you know, listen, when people are passing away, like I was very calm when my mom was dying, but my sister wasn't. And I thought it was okay for her to have her moment of being very upset. You know what I mean? Like, I was trying to stay calm for my kids and everybody else. Oh, I don't think I was calm on the inside, but I was calm, you know? Like, probably more in shock than anything else, but I don't think there's a right or wrong way to have that experience. I think you have to let your nervous system process whatever it needs to process in that moment and have as much grace for yourself as you can, because I don't think there's a right or wrong, right? Yeah, Joey says, my second oldest sleepwalks and talks. My son sleepwalks and Zoe sleep talks. I feel like my kids split the difference. And it's both weird. And I've had Nick, I've found Nick in the hallway before and looked at him and he's clearly not awake. And I'll be like, Nick, and he's looking at me like, it's so weird. And I'm like, go back to bed. This is creepy. You know, like, he's looking at me like, you look like a nice lady. Like, what is happening here right now? Yeah. Should we do anything to prepare for elder council? I want to breathe into it a little bit. We have a nice foundation as of tonight, right? Of like maybe not doing the animal products and getting a little extra rest the night before, and no caffeine and no alcohol maybe that day, or at least not too much. You know what I mean? So that your body's kind of a nice container for it. And then what I'm going to do is experiment with some different techniques to try to get you into a different brain state. And we'll see how it goes from there. I'm really excited to see what comes if we can get into some variation of a hypergamma. Yeah. I know. I still crawled into my mom's bed when I was an adult. Is that embarrassing? I did. I remember having, a couple nights where I couldn't sleep, and I remember going in and tapping on her shoulder and going, "Can I?" And she would just be like, didn't want to wake up, but like, okay. But I'm little, so maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, you have a little 5'1" person crawling in. It's not that bad.
It's not embarrassing.
Oh. Isn't that interesting? Look at all the conversations you guys are having and all of this. Desiree had a dream that a shaman gave her a clear quartz crow skull. She ended up finding it in real life, and she bought it. Thank God, because I've heard of customers having not exactly that experience, but similar, honestly, Desiree, and they didn't buy it, and they spent the rest of their life going, how did I not buy that thing? When I finally found that thing that I saw in my dream, how did I not buy it? So I'm glad you did it. And Irene's saying that she worked nights for 3 decades, so she's finally getting to sleep now. And when your diurnal clock is wonk, right, when everything is flippy-floppy. I have so many friends and clients who are nurses, law enforcement, you know what I mean? And so they're working these 12-hour shifts, and a lot of times it's overnight and stuff like that. That can also impact your experiences. But like I said, I think we have to stop thinking about it as just lucid dreaming, because the word dream becomes confusing. I don't think that you need to be asleep to have those experiences. Yeah, well, and little kids, remember, I always say, the younger they are, the closer they are to the divine, right? They've seen God more recently than you have, right? Or whatever you call God. So they are more accurate sources of inspiration or of information sometimes than we are, because we now have been fully inducted and brainwashed into being fully human for the most part, right? Marie Scott said, I wonder if sharing dreams with someone the same as dream walking with that person, where it becomes one dream you share with another that's the same in every detail. I think it kind of is. Yeah, and Seer Hannah is sharing something from the Jewish tradition. Every tradition has their little protection traditions and symbols and prayers, and I do think there's real power in working with whatever is your lineage and tradition. I really do. I always say, if you grew up in New Delhi, you may not be familiar with Jesus, right? So that's not going to resonate with you, but some of the protection deities from the Hindu pantheon are. So God shows up to you in the way that you'll recognize. So it's whatever that is for you, working with your own tradition is very important. That's really, really cool. Oh, you guys, and such sweet stories about the end of life for a lot of your loved ones, and there's no easy way. Moonlit Orchid said, my mom passed away in my home, and now my grandkids are afraid of that room. Any suggestions I can tell them not to freak out about the room? Mm-hmm. Kids do have this thing about, so my son's best friend's family live in the house that, what's his name from Blink-182? The guy who committed suicide, Chester.
Oh, you mean from Lincoln Park? No one from Blink-182 was committed suicide.
Oh,
I think you're talking about
Lincoln Park? Yeah, okay, yeah. Why was I thinking Blink-182? I don't know.
Lincoln.
I think it's Lincoln Park.
Yeah.
Anyway, his house is not far from my house, and my son's best friend's family lives there. And they all went into the room a couple of weeks ago where it happened. And, my son was like, I wasn't that freaked out, but like I wouldn't want to sleep in there. Kids do have like a thing about going into rooms where someone has passed away. And so there's a couple different things you can do. First of all, you can remind them that, like, in my experience, most of the time energy doesn't stay in that space. So the energy moves through. You can also get them involved in smudging or clearing the energy, right? Help them, do a little saging and get them involved to talk about it. Or if you want to go like the Athena direction, what I do is remind them that everything is a burial ground. This whole planet is nothing but a big vibrating burial ground, right? So it may not be your house, but it probably is the land under your house, right? So, or wherever you live. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes I make things worse and not better with my little layered additions, but Chester Bennington, that's right. So yeah, but they all say that the house is very comfortable. There's no bad energy, and my son is very clairsentient. Nick is very clairsentient, like shockingly clairsentient. He was just like, because he gets like jump scares when he's in a room where there's something, and he was like, it didn't happen to me when I was there.
Aww.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really sad when that happened. Let's see. Okay, well, we are at time. I hope you guys enjoyed class tonight. I really do. I get to start using a new bell next month, which is going to be really weird. I might still use this one because I just love it so much.
Maybe you'll switch off.
I know. Yeah. So thank you guys for being here tonight, right? Yeah. And and I think too, like, teaching kids as early as possible. I'll just leave you with this. Like, I am one of those people. I don't think of kids as kids. Kids are very old souls in small-ish bodies, and they are just as frustrated about that as we are sometimes. And I don't believe in introducing kids to stuff they're not ready for, or like overwhelming kids. But at the same time, I also like to loop my kids into the sitch, you know what I mean? and that everything is energy. They were never created and they'll never be destroyed, right? They will change form one day. But I do like to, I see that as a way of honoring and respecting them, is answering their questions as truthfully as I can without, but what I find is the truth is less scary than what they often come up with in their minds. You know what I mean? Like, when their little imaginations run wild, a lot of times the truth or the reality of things is actually calming and stabilizing to them. So, and asking questions and probing and talking to them about things and being a safe space for conversations and all of that, So yeah, we're talking about dreams this whole month. We're talking about dreams and interdimensional, multidimensional dream work. So, and then what we're going to do after session 3 is I'm going to help you set intentions for your dream time that night, and then I'm going to ask everybody to process in the group the next day what you experience, not only in the journey, but also in your dreams afterwards. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Karen, as usual, for everything, and Alexis for all the work that goes on behind the scenes. It was wonderful to be here, and Tara for all her work this month as well. So enjoy. I will be with you tomorrow night live for full moon in Gemini. Holy shit. And I'm going to be talk, blah, 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 because it's a full moon in Gemini. That's 6 to 7 Pacific time, 9 to 10 Eastern time. And then you'll get a break from me for a couple of days. A reminder that if you are staying in Soul Shift in the new year, it's now called Living Magic. You've already been migrated over. Mm-hmm. The only thing you have to do is, if you want to change from monthly to annual or annual to monthly, the annual saves you $200. You can still do that until the 31st of this month. If you are staying, go get your free book. And if Karen and Alexis, if you guys can pop the link up, I don't know how many copies we have, but it's just a couple of dozen now, and we
Yeah.
will not have any more free books. So I want to make sure that everybody who's here who wants one can get one. And if you want tools for next year, you do have to subscribe for those. Those are not automatic. Your subscription for tools is going to automatically be canceled at the end of December. So if you want January tools, which are really cool, and you can find those at sagegoddess.com/livingmagic, you should go and register for either the Crystalpedia tools, which is the Black Kyanite ring and the Little Book of Gems, or the Living Magic tools, which is the Labradorite Lazy Susan DJ wheel and everything else, or you can subscribe for both. But that's not automatic, so you do need to subscribe if you want the tools, and you have to do that by the 31st, I think, as well.
Yes, by December 31st for January tools. After that, the deadline is going to be on the 14th.
Yeah,
midnight
back
on
to
the
where
14th.
it used to be before.
Yeah.
So there's the link to the book. sagegoddess.com/livingmagic will take you to the page to get your tools if you want them. And and you can do that anytime. The only urgency, honestly, right now is not tools. It's the book, because we are going to run out of the books, and I don't have any more. You can wait until the 31st to sign up for tools if you want. You do pay when you sign up for the tools. So, but the book, you're only paying shipping. So, and it's just kind of a fun, free treat that he did that. So, good for you. And if you did not get your bag, T-Power, then let us know. You should have gotten your bag, and just please write into support.sagegoddess.com. And we will make sure you get a bag, because that should have happened for you. All right, you guys, enjoy. Serana has a question about the book, so Karen or Alexis, if you can help her too. We just want to make sure you've got everything you need. And have a great rest of your night, you guys. We'll see you. We'll see you very soon.
We love you
Thank you for being here.
guys.
See you soon.